Chapter 566. Chance encounter. At the center of the 10,000 miles volcano, there was a dark red volcano that was 1,000 meters tall. There was a huge stone door at the foot of the volcano. More than a dozen people were standing guard on both sides of the door. Each of them was at the peak of the Sage Realm. Longchen was brought to this place by several people. The surrounding temperature suddenly rose, and the surrounding mountains caused the air to distort due to the heat. After entering this place, Longchen couldn't help but frown slightly. There were actually more than 100 people here. The whole mountain was distributed in a circular shape, and there was a guard post every 10 steps along the wall. In the center, a red-haired middle-aged man held a long whip in his hand. He only had one eye and one arm. Reporting to Master Yen, we are still short of 70 people to reach 200. After sending Longchen off, a soldier respectfully reported to the middle-aged man. Longchen's eyes narrowed. He did not expect this middle-aged man to be Yen Qishan. Using his divine thought, it was as he had expected. This person was really an elite at the peak of the Earth's celestial stage. There were more than 10 people standing behind him. All of them were at the later stage of the Earth's celestial stage, and they were quite powerful. However, his attention was quickly attracted by the man's single eye and severed arm. With his cultivation at the heavenly immortal realm, as long as his body wasn't completely shattered and his soul was still intact, he could condense a physical body. However, this person only had one eye and one arm, and it was truly strange. However, Yen Qishan didn't give him any time to think. He coldly snorted and ordered, "Send them all in. The remaining 70 people go out and capture them, the news has spread. I'm afraid there won't be anyone coming to join the army for a while." After Yen Qishan finished speaking, Longchen and the rest were directly driven into the tunnel inside the volcano. As they entered the passageway, the temperature around them gradually rose. Many of them even had their hair curled up. The group started from the foot of the mountain, but they did not go up the mountain peak. Instead, they meandered deep into the ground. About 1,000 meters underground, the surrounding temperature suddenly became cool. This contrast made everyone look at each other in dismay. This winding passageway seemed to have just been opened up recently. There were still a lot of stone fragments in all directions, and the walls were also very rough. However, everyone could see that lava was flowing out of the grooves on both sides of the tunnel. Why was the temperature so cool in a place with magma? What are you all standing around for? Keep widening and digging. More than 10 soldiers sneered and lined up in a straight line in the tunnel, blocking the way back. At the same time, a fiery red whip appeared in their hands. The whip was exactly the same as the whip that Yen Qishan had used earlier. Peepa peepa. The 10 long whips danced in the air, bringing with them streams of fiery light that landed on everyone's bodies. Ah! Ah! A series of mournful cries sounded out. Longchen dodged to the side and quickly picked up the spirit hose on the ground with everyone else. Only then did everyone stop wielding the long whips. Ha! The power of this whip is really not bad. Especially in this volcanic area, it can actually mobilize the power of fire. Hurry up and let them mine. There must be a lot of mineral liquid flowing back from this volcanic eruption. You guys stay here and watch. I'll go up and see if the others are here. Flowing back mineral fluid? A smile flashed across Longchen's face. In that case, although they had discovered that there were refining materials here, they had yet to discover the essence of the true fire and the true fire immortal essence. Dozens of people were mining at the same time. Everyone's face was gloomy. They were originally people who came to join the army. After all, the treatment for training soldiers under the Heavenly Palace was not low. They were more likely to work for the Heavenly Palace. However, they did not expect to become slaves just like that. Clanging sounds continuously rang out in the tunnel. The surrounding walls were incomparably hard. Everyone could only use their immortal essence to move the spirit hose half an inch into the ground. In the short span of an hour, there were only a dozen or so pieces of fiery red stones in the baskets behind them. This made many people furious. Only Longchen's eyes flickered. This stone was called fire feather amber. It was an ore that accompanied the true fire realm. In other words, the essence of the true fire and the true fire immortal essence were all here and had not been mined. Just as Longchen was thinking, dozens of people were brought in behind him. These people's cultivation was even worse. They were only in the human king realm. There were even many old, weak, sick, and disabled people. However, one of them stunned Longchen. The moment that person saw Longchen, he could not help but be surprised. Then, his face was filled with ecstasy. Crack! 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 Before the two of them could speak, they saw the shadow of a whip falling behind them. Longchen's eyes suddenly turned cold. However, he saw the person in front of him move and block the whip that was aimed at him. Hurry up and work. Don't rest day and night. Mine as much as you can. After a short moment of excitement, everyone began to work like slaves again. In the blink of an eye, it was midnight. Although they did not stop work, many of the guards had already left the mine. Especially after nightfall, the temperature in the tunnel was sometimes cold and sometimes hot. It was really not a place for people to stay. Many guards were guarding the entrance of the cave. They did not go deep into the cave and watched them with their own eyes. It's really you. I knew you wouldn't die in the ancient desolate land. As soon as everyone left, a pair of big hands fell on Longchen's shoulders. This person was Aodsuncheong. The Battle of Heaven Wasteland had just begun. Aodsuncheong was forcibly sent to the Heaven Domain by Ao Chankong. Longchen did not expect that they would meet here and in such a situation. I heard that the Death Palace was turned upside down by a young man from the ancient desolate land starting from the Bright Moon clan. I knew it must be you, so I immediately came to find you. Aodsuncheong was very excited. Longchen's heart was filled with warmth. However, he took a deep look at the people who came in with Aodsuncheong and asked in confusion, "These people are with you, right? Why are you here? According to their cultivations, those soldiers should not be able to catch you. Your Excellency, you have good eyesight. We are the remnants of the Dark Star in the Heaven Domain. Since you are the brother of our master, we will take you away safely today." Before Aodsuncheong could speak, an old man in a yellow robe behind him spoke. The remnants of the Dark Star? Longchen nodded slightly. In his previous life, the remnants of the Dark Star were the foundation of Aodsuncheong's rise. Otherwise, with his character, how could he become the ruler of a region and establish the Dark God Kingdom? However, this person misunderstood and thought that Longchen had been captured and brought in. Longchen did not explain. Instead, he smiled at Aodsuncheong and said, "I guess you are the one who brought them here to save people, right? I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to do so." The most powerful person behind Aodsuncheong was only at the later stage of the Earth's celestial stage. It was this person who used his celestial strength to seal the five senses of the people around them so that they could talk like this. Chapter 567. Two-headed strange beast. Just as Longchen had said, Aodsuncheong was deliberately captured and brought here not because he knew that Longchen was here in advance. Instead, he wanted to save these captured cultivators. In fact, they had arrived here a few days earlier than Longchen. Ever since the volcano erupted last time, they had been constantly recruiting people to enter this place. Many of those who had come to join the army had never left once they entered this place. Aodsuncheong and the others had originally passed by this place, and coincidentally, there were people who wanted to escape, so they noticed this 10,000-mile-long volcano. After some discussion, Longchen frowned slightly. After Yanqi Mountain mined the ore, they actually killed all the miners. Longchen also knew of Aodsuncheong and the others' plan. They actually wanted to destroy this mountain and kill Yanqi Mountain, as well as the more than 10 late-stage Earth Immortal stage cultivators here. However, what made Longchen laugh involuntarily was that these people actually did not mention assassination techniques. Instead, they wanted to use the formation to mobilize the power of the true fire within this 10,000-mile-long volcano to kill Yanqi Mountain and the others. This made Longchen somewhat worried. Yanqi Mountain and the others had been living in this 10,000-mile-long volcano all year round. Could the power of the true fire really achieve a one-hit kill? Longchen pondered for a moment and said, if I'm not wrong, there must be true fire essence and true fire immortal core power below. Can you let me see your formation? If we can use the power of the true fire to refine the true fire essence, then the success rate of this matter will be doubled. The few people behind Ascension were shocked when they heard this, but they said in a low voice, the true fire essence, we can't refine this thing. This is a saint-grade material, our formation can't control it. Longchen pretended to wave the spirit hoe and said indifferently, let me see the formation you prepared to control the power of the true fire. The few of them threw a jade slip into Longchen's hands with a suspicious expression. Longchen took the jade slip, and everyone withdrew their immortal core power and stopped talking. From time to time, there would be people coming in to patrol the cave. As the night passed, the tunnel regained its coolness. But as they went deeper into the forest, the temperature began to change even in the daytime. Many people who had not reached the Saint Realm directly fell to the ground, their bodies burning with raging flames. Such a scene made many people fearful and uneasy, and some even began to rush out of the cave. But just as he rushed out of the cave, he was killed. Only now did everyone know that once they entered this place, they would have to mine without rest until they died. The next day, midnight. Longchen and the others continued to mine, but they once again sealed off the 5 senses of the people around them and began to converse. This spell can smelt a small amount of true fire essence, but it has the power to kill an Earth Celestial stage cultivator. But if I'm the main person in charge of the spell, the success rate will be increased by 30%. Longchen said in a deep voice. After Longchen finished speaking, everyone except for Ascension frowned. One of the powerhouses in the later stage of the Earth Celestial stage behind him showed a trace of contempt and said, after all, you're my master's brother, so we'll naturally give you some face. But this matter concerns our life and death, so we'll decide for ourselves. I have a question, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask. What's your cultivation now? How old are you? But what exactly is this spell? Do you know how much immortal core power is needed to forcibly refine sage-grade materials? They were all powerhouses in the later stage of the Earth Celestial stage. For the past 2 days, they had been tolerating the guards here, and they were all angry in their hearts. Ascension and the yellow-robed old man behind him had a sullen expression. They were just about to scold them when Longchen said, it's okay, it's normal for everyone to be worried. Then let's do it according to your method. I've made some changes to this spell, take a look. Everyone snorted coldly, and their expressions became better. But they didn't know that Longchen had already used his powerful divine sense to forcibly imprint this spell, and perfected it. One of them stared at Longchen and said, we heard that you have a holy weapon. Why don't you use the power of the holy weapon to kill Yan Qishan and the others? Some Earth Celestial stage powerhouses can't fight against a holy weapon. Longchen shook his head and said, my holy weapon has many restrictions, so it's inconvenient to use it. Longchen didn't explain too much. In fact, he knew very well that he couldn't continue to use the holy weapon. Just as everyone said, the power of the holy weapon was too strong for his current cultivation level. Once he encountered difficulties, the first thing he thought of was the holy weapon. If one day he encountered someone who could fight against a holy weapon, he would probably die without a burial place if he wasn't careful. While Longchen and the others were talking, the body of the man at the front suddenly burst into flames, and he cried out in pain. The people around him frantically retreated, and they looked at the scene in front of them in horror. Save me, crack crack crack. Before the man could finish his words, he turned into a drop of stone. Let me leave this place, let me go. What's going on? What did he dig up? Charge out. We'll die here sooner or later. Everyone's eyes widened, and they felt the heat and cold alternating faster and faster. This strange feeling made everyone spit out a mouthful of blood, and Longchen was no exception. Everyone quickly retreated to the entrance of the cave, and they stared at the end of the tunnel. There was a glaring flame on the wall, and there was a sharp thorn in it. Poof poof poof. The entire wall of the tunnel was instantly riddled with holes, and countless sharp thorns cut through the extremely hard wall like tofu. Roar! The wall at the end of the tunnel collapsed, and a demonic beast the size of a small mountain rushed towards them with lava flowing like a river. Whether it was Ascension or the people behind him, they all felt their scalps go numb. It was a two-headed centipede. One of the centipede's heads was like cold iron, while the other was spitting out lava. Its huge body was like countless hard armors as it rushed out of the lava. The iron legs on it were like divine weapons, and everywhere it passed, everything was crushed. There were countless sharp thorns that were nearly 10 meters long on the scales all over its body. The left side was completely blue, and the right side was completely red. It was extremely terrifying. Long Chen and Ascension were extremely fast, and almost at the same time, they pulled the people around them and rushed out of the cave. Outside the cave, many soldiers had already noticed the abnormality and had already retreated to the outside of the volcano. Seeing this, the people behind Ascension said in a deep voice, "My lord, quickly retreat. Yanqi Mountain will definitely bring many experts to suppress this abnormality, and we won't have a chance to take action." However, just as he finished speaking, Longchen said coldly, "When this demonic beast is dead, it's the best time to take action. Look carefully at what's in the mouth of this two-headed centipede." Everyone looked over, and found that there was an irregular stone the size of a bedboard in the left side of the two-headed centipede's cold iron mouth. The stone was sometimes fiery and sometimes extremely cold. Chapter 568. Surprise attack. Long Chen and Ascension had already run far away with the few people they brought along. Many of them even charged towards the outer region of the volcano. At this moment, everyone's gaze was on the two-headed centipede demonic beast. No one cared about them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 people flew through the air. Celestial chi rose around them, making them look like gods. The person in the lead was Yan Qishan. When Yan Qishan saw the double-headed centipede demonic beast, he was also extremely shocked. Wherever this beast passed by, it would turn into scorched earth. Many armors and even virtual immortals could not break through its scales at all. Those below the virtual immortal realm could not even withstand a single blow. They were instantly killed by the lava or cold air it spat out. After a short moment of shock, Yan Qishan shouted, "Bathing flame centipede, I didn't expect there to be such a beast here. Moreover, it's a mutated beast." The people behind him also came to a realization. This volcano was used to train soldiers. Every soldier was familiar with fire formations. However, there were many bathing flame centipede when this place was first formed. At that time, many experts from the 3 middle halls of the Heavenly Palace attacked and captured all of them. They did not expect there to be one left. "Kill this beast for me. Heaven Barracks, get into formation." After a short moment of consideration, Yan Qishan immediately gave the order. At his command, the 10 Earth Immortal Realm cultivators each led close to 1,000 people to form a formation. 10 majestic flames soared into the sky, transforming into blazing 9-section spears. Yan Qishan did not seem to care about Long Chen and the others. He only treated them as ordinary soldiers. However, Ascension and the few Earth Immortal Realm cultivators behind him could not help but turn pale. The person in the lead even said, "My lord, let's retreat. Or you can leave first. We'll use assassination techniques. In this way, there are only 10 Earth Immortal Realm cultivators. Shut up." Before this person finished speaking, Ascension's expression had already turned cold. He said in a low voice, "I've said that since you've taken me as your master, you can't live on as assassins." When the Earth Celestial Stage cultivators saw that Ascension was infuriated, they immediately kept quiet and didn't say anything else. The yellow-robed elder in the lead stared at Yan Qishan, who was assembling a battle formation to fight the two-headed demonic beast. He said in a low voice, "Let's underestimate Yan Qishan and the others. The battle formation that they have assembled now uses the Earth Celestial Stage as the formation core and 1,000 people as the base. I'm afraid that they can even fight against a few Heaven Celestial Stage experts. We can't win even if we use the formation." Ascension's expression was somewhat gloomy. he naturally knew that the yellow-robed elder was telling the truth. Such a powerful demonic beast was already showing signs of fatigue under the attacks of the 10 battle formations. Soon, the beast would be defeated. Now was the best time for them to leave. However, right when they were about to set out, they were suddenly stopped by Long Chen. "Everyone, wait a moment. Even though their battle formations are formidable, we still have a chance to take down these earthly celestial realm experts after this beast dies. Once the earthly celestial stage experts are taken down, the close to 100,000 soldiers here will be defeated without a fight." Everyone stopped in their tracks. After being stunned for a moment, they couldn't help but shake their heads and say, "These people's battle formations have already been completed. It's impossible for us to break through. Once we're entangled, we'll be doomed eternally. My lord, let's leave quickly. Your brother's tone is boundless. If we didn't know, I'm afraid we'd think that he's a heaven celestial stage expert. Even if we take down these 11 Earth celestial stage experts, there are close to 100,000 soldiers here. There are also many Essence celestial stage experts. If they also form a battle formation, do you think we'll be able to leave alive?" As the few of them finished speaking, they were about to leave with Audiobook. At that moment, in their eyes, Long Chen was simply a complete madman. The situation was already out of control. It was simply a fool's dream to still want to take down Yan Qishan and the others. The Dark Star Organization was originally an organization in the Tianyu region. Later on, after experiencing a drastic change, they had no choice but to move to the ancient desolate land. Only an extremely small number of hidden people stayed behind to take root in the Tianyu region. When Audiobook sent Audiobook to the Tianyu region, they wholeheartedly followed Audiobook. However, no one thought that they would meet Long Chen. In their eyes, Long Chen was just an initial stage essence celestial stage cultivator from the ancient desolate land. In the ancient desolate land, his cultivation level might be considered as a top expert. However, in the Tianyu region, if he was from the younger generation, it would be fine. However, compared to the older generation, he was not even worth mentioning. Learning to tuck one's tail between one's legs was the way to survive. It was not to be so competitive and arrogant. Long Chen naturally saw the contempt in these people's eyes. However, he also knew that it was human nature. After all, they were also thinking about Audiobook's safety. However, Long Chen didn't have the time to explain the reason to them at that moment. This was because at that very moment, Yanqi Mountain was about to kill the demonic beast. 10 advanced stage Earth celestial stage experts led 10 teams of thousands of people to form a battle formation. In an instant, they actually formed a long spear that was 10,000 feet long and pierced through the place where the two heads of the demonic beast were connected. The sound of metal clashing resounded throughout the entire square at the foot of the volcano. More and more soldiers and armors gathered here. The expressions of the people behind Audiobook instantly changed. They didn't want to speak anymore. Once everyone gathered here, they would become turtles in a jar. In the blink of an eye, the few of them turned into numerous black shadows. They grabbed Audiobook and flew into the sky. The few of them didn't seem to have any intention of bringing Long Chen along with them. Let go! However, it was a pity that they still didn't understand Audiobook. Audiobook's cultivation level suddenly dissipated. It exploded with shocking power. Although it was only at the saint stage, it still fell from the hands of the few people. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. No one expected Audiobook to forcefully break free from their restraints. Seeing this, the few of them looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They actually landed on the ground one after another. At that very moment, Yanqi Mountain and the rest had just succeeded. They were still in the midst of forming a battle formation. The huge demonic beast's body was cut into 2 pieces by them. The huge corpse was like a collapsed mountain. The blood in the middle was like a turbulent river formed by magma. Everyone's gaze was on Yanqi Mountain and the rest. Instead, no one cared that Audiobook and the rest were standing at the foot of the mountain and had just flown a few meters. However, at that very moment, Long Chen shouted, "Big brother, help me!" Hearing this, Ascension's body shook. Just as Longchen said the two words "Big Brother," his body turned into a ray of flowing light and charged towards the battle formation formed by Yanqi Mountain and the rest from the left and right respectively with Longchen. At the same time, the few people behind Ascension were also prepared to die. They exploded with the great pressure of the Earth Immortal stage. The immortal power around them surged into the sky like a tide. Such a scene immediately put everyone on alert. The soldiers in the surroundings all looked at Longchen and the others in unison. Chapter 569. Killing with a formation. Yanchishan and the rest of the Earth Immortals led thousands of people to form a battle formation. When they saw Longchen and the rest charging towards them, they could not help but sneer. In their eyes, Longchen and the rest were like moths to a flame. If they were not in a battle formation, it might take some effort to kill Longchen and the rest. But now that they had a battle formation, their strength had multiplied. The outcome was obvious. Just as the 10 battle formations were about to move, a ray of cold light appeared in Longchen's right hand and flew towards Yanchishan. It turned into a sky full of sword radiance. Yanchishan and the rest stopped in their tracks subconsciously. But the sword radiance disappeared in the next moment. No one expected that the countless sword radiance would land on the dead bodies of the demonic beasts. Roar! Following that, a scene that terrified everyone appeared. The two demonic beasts that had been split into two actually came back to life as if they were experiencing terminal lucidity before death. Their huge mouths spewed out lava and roared as they flew back towards Yanchishan and the rest. Yanchishan and the rest had nowhere to retreat. Their expressions changed drastically. They were standing at the place where the demonic beasts' chests and abdomens had been split open. The two huge mouths were flying towards them and there was no way to avoid them. The surrounding soldiers who were about to attack Longchen and the rest were shocked when the demonic beasts attacked. They stopped in their tracks and retreated 100 meters. At the same time, Longchen's eyes shone brightly. He said, "Set up the formation." All of this happened very quickly. It only took 2 to 3 breaths. Just as Longchen finished speaking, Ascension waved out formation flags in his right hand. The few people behind Ascension did not dare to hesitate. They could only seek survival in the face of death. A formation flag appeared in each of their hands. They waved it and waves of firepower turned into torrents. Countless killing formations were completed in an instant. Just as everyone thought it was over, a formation flag appeared in Longchen's hand. However, this flag was formed from immortal power. But everyone could still see the complicated formation patterns on it. As Longchen waved the flag, the firepower in the air increased by 3 times. Formation, fire refines the 3 pure heavens. Longchen roared, and the firepower that filled the sky turned into a sea of fire. The air was actually burning with raging flames at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of the formation swayed and instantly landed on Yanchishan and the others who were about to be attacked by the 2 demonic beasts. The 10 people from Yanqi Mountain displayed the power of the battle formation and were about to smash the head of the demonic beast into pieces with their spears. The flames that filled the sky had already descended. The people behind Ascension immediately wanted to control the flames to engulf Yanqi Mountain. However, at this moment, they saw the array flag in Longchen's hand move. They actually lost the right to control the array formation. Their expressions changed drastically, but they had no choice but to stare at Longchen. Longchen's expression remained unchanged, as if everything was within his expectations. As the array flag in his hand trembled, the sea of flames that filled the sky actually landed on the demonic beast's left head that was as cold as iron. He actually wants to refine the essence of the primordial fire. The people behind Ascension naturally saw Longchen's intention. He actually wanted to borrow the power of the formation to refine a portion of the essence of the primordial fire for a short period of time. This formation was called Fire Refines the 3 Pure Heavens, and it was a formation formed by firepower. This was a volcano that spanned thousands of miles. The power of this formation was already ridiculously strong, which was why they had some confidence in destroying Yanqi Mountain. The essence of the primordial fire was a piece of flint that was nurtured in the extreme heat of the volcano. It absorbed the extreme power of the fire. If they could really refine a trace of it, there would be a fundamental change in this formation. Sizzle. The sea of flames formed by the formation landed, and the head of the demonic beast that was already dead instantly turned into powder. The object that was the size of a stone bed was instantly covered in flames. The sound of water and fire mixing could be heard. Oh no! Yanqi Mountain and the other 9 advanced stage Earth Immortal Realm experts who were in the battle formation all had a drastic change in expression. They lived in a volcano all year round and had a deep understanding of fire. If Long Chen's move was successful, their lives would definitely be in danger. The 10 peak Earth Immortal Realm experts, including Yanqi Mountain, instantly left the battle formation and fled in all directions, trying to escape from the formation. The battle formation was like a cage to them at this moment. Buzz! Ah! The sea of flames landed like boiling oil, and the 10 Earth Immortal Realm experts were instantly annihilated by the power of the formation after flying for a few meters. The 10,000 people behind them instantly turned into ashes, and there was no lack of Sage Realm experts among them. However, they did not even last a breath. The power of this formation was evident. Poof! Poof! The formation flag in Long Chen's hand moved again, and the essence of the primordial fire was reduced by another portion, but the power of the formation's flames increased by another 3 portions. Now, within the battle formation controlled by Long Chen and the rest, there was no longer flames, but magma that filled the sky. However, the temperature of the magma had reached a terrifying level. As the first Earth Immortal Realm expert's body turned into flames and collapsed, the second, the third, who exactly are you people? Yanqi Mountain shouted unwillingly. He had never thought that he would end up like this today. Bang! As Yanqi Mountain's body collapsed, Long Chen moved the formation flag in his right hand and instantly retracted the formation. Only the 10 godly souls remained in the sky. Yanqi Mountain did not expect Long Chen to retract the formation. The temperature of the formation just now was too terrifying. He was afraid that in another 3 to 4 breaths, his godly soul would be burned into green smoke. Yanqi Mountain and the other 10 people immediately charged towards the army. At the same time, Yanqi Mountain roared, "Everyone, get into formation and take them down." Countless soldiers in all directions started to get into formation, as if they had practiced this countless times. However, he did not finish his sentence, because he and the other 9 Earth Immortal Realm godly souls were in Long Chen's hands. How is this possible? You can actually suppress our godly souls? You are only in the virtual immortal realm. Regardless of whether it was Yanqi Mountain and the rest, or the people behind Ascension, they were all staring at Long Chen as if they were staring at a monster. Long Chen smiled but did not speak. He waved his right hand, and a long sword stood in the air. He said faintly, "This sword is the holy sword. Today, we will only kill Yanqi Mountain and the rest. You all take care of yourselves." Hiss. As expected, as soon as Long Chen's voice fell, the footsteps of the leaders from all directions actually stopped in unison. During this period of time, a holy weapon had appeared in the Death Spirit Hall. Almost everyone in the Hao Yu clan had died. If this sword was really a holy weapon, they could imagine the outcome if they continued to charge forward. At the same time, Long Chen waved his hand and kept the stone bed and the pearl in the mouths of the 2 godly beasts on the ground. Then, he patted Ascension's shoulder and gave him a look. No one dared to hesitate. In the next moment, they rose into the air and disappeared into the sky. No one expected that because of Long Chen's words, no one dared to surround them in a few breaths. In these few breaths, everyone had already left the most dangerous place. After everyone left, one of the cultivators at the initial stage of the Earth Celestial stage looked excited, but he didn't order his men to chase after Long Chen and the others. Instead, he said in a deep voice, "This person has a holy weapon. Even if we take him down, I'm afraid there will be countless casualties. I will temporarily take over the position of the chief instructor." Chapter 570. Inquiries. Long Chen and the rest did not stop at all as they quickly left the area of the volcano. Everyone had a lingering fear in their hearts. If not for Long Chen's sacred sword at the last moment to stop the 100,000 troops from moving, they would not have had the chance to leave at all. In just a few breaths, they had escaped from a place of certain death. In fact, with close to 100,000 people attacking at the same time at such a close distance, even if Long Chen controlled the sacred weapon with his virtual immortal realm cultivation, he would probably only end up dying. Under Ascension's lead, the group headed north and arrived at a rugged place. Then, they entered a cave. The cave was not big, but it was extremely hidden. As soon as the group entered the cave, they sealed the entrance with a formation. This was where Ascension and the rest were staying. There were many defensive formations outside the cave. The few of them looked at each other, and their gazes finally fell on Long Chen. The few people behind Ascension stepped forward and cupped their fists towards Long Chen. Today's matter was short-sighted. Please don't blame us. Long Chen stepped forward and quickly helped the yellow-robed old man and the few people behind him up. From the beginning to the end, these people were thinking from Ascension's perspective. Long Chen admired them for being willing to follow Ascension to their deaths even when they thought that they were going to die. Long Chen looked at the few of them and explained, "This matter is not entirely your fault. Because it happened too quickly, I did not have time to explain. It is normal that you do not understand. Today's demonic beast has always been living in the lava of the volcano. Its cultivation is equivalent to the heavenly immortal realm. It can be said that it is extremely powerful. The formation that Yan Qishan and the rest used was based on firepower. Even if they won, the beast would definitely still be alive." Everyone came to a sudden realization and finally understood why Long Chen thought that they still had a chance after seeing Yan Qishan and the others forming the formation. When the yellow-robed old man heard this, he immediately smiled and said, "Even though that is the case, the fact that you are able to see all of this and modify our formation to the extent that it can refine the essence of the true fire is definitely not something that an ordinary person can do." Everyone nodded. However, when they recalled how Long Chen had captured the soul of Yan Qishan, who was at the peak of the Earth's celestial stage, with a wave of his hand, they understood. The strength of Long Chen's divine sense was definitely beyond their imagination. With such a divine sense, he was able to see through things that they could not notice. In fact, the true fire essence was a saint-grade material. Even he couldn't refine it in the slightest. After all, he wasn't a weapon refiner. It was just that he had made many changes to the formation, and only by using the power of the 10,000 miles volcano could he refine some of it. Long Chen had no intention of explaining. He released Yan Qishan and the other peak 9 lives Earth immortal stage divine souls. On the ground, there was an irregular stone bed. The stone bed was sometimes scorching hot, and they couldn't help but take 2 steps back. At other times, it was as cold as ice, and everyone's blood felt a little frozen. On the other side, there was a fiery red demon pill. There seemed to be a fire soul swimming in it, and it was extremely strange. Long Chen murmured, "This stone bed is the essence of the true fire, and the demon pill is the true fire celestial core power." Before he could continue speaking, he was stopped by Ascension. Ascension motioned for him to keep these things. The few people behind him also took a step back. The meaning was self-evident. They naturally knew that Long Chen wanted to divide these things equally with them, but they were too ashamed to ask for it. The yellow-robed old man directly said to Long Chen in a deep voice, "If you really treat us as friends, then keep these 2 things." Long Chen swallowed the words in his stomach. Immediately, he smiled helplessly and kept the 2 items. Immediately after, 2 jade slips appeared in his hand. After Long Chen imprinted his divine thought on them, he handed them to the yellow-robed old man and said in a deep voice, "This is the fire-refining Sanqing sky array that I have modified, and the method to modify the array flags in your hands. You must accept this item. Otherwise, you can take one of the sage-grade materials and the true fire celestial core power." The yellow-robed old man and the few people behind him blushed. In the end, they took Long Chen's jade slips. Compared to the sage-grade materials and the true fire celestial core power, this array was perhaps more important to them. Although the sage-grade materials were precious, they could only be sold. They were too ashamed to share the true fire celestial core power with Long Chen. After all, it was all thanks to Long Chen that they could survive today. When Long Chen saw that they were about to bow, he quickly waved his hand and said, "Since you are friends with my big brother, then we are friends too. There's no need to be so polite." His voice paused. Long Chen's eyes fell on Yan Qishan. "Also, I have some important things to do." Yan Qishan's divine soul was alert. When he saw Long Chen looking over, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Yan Qishan pretended to be calm and shouted at Long Chen in a deep voice, "I have never seen you before. You and I have no enmity." "Why are you?" Long Chen said in a deep voice, "Although you and I have no enmity, you have something I want to know. Do you know that the Nether Ghost ruler imprisoned a woman from the ancient Desolation land?" Yan Qishan's eyes suddenly shrank, and he quickly said, "What are you talking about? As the chief instructor of the Death Spirit Hall, how would I know about a woman from the ancient Desolation land?" Long Chen sneered, but his eyes fell on the other 9 Earth Celestial Stages' divine souls. "If he doesn't tell me the answer I want to hear, every 10 breaths, I will kill one of you. Otherwise, if he tells me, I will let all of you go." Ao Tsungcheong and the rest looked at each other, but they didn't know who Long Chen was talking about. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed. When the 9 divine souls looked at Yan Qishan, they were somewhat fearful, and all of them were silent. Boom! However, just as everyone was hesitating, one of them's divine souls was directly shattered by Long Chen, turning into a wisp of green smoke. Then, Long Chen continued to look at everyone coldly. Another 10 breaths passed. When the second person's divine soul was destroyed, the other 7 people roared at Yan Qishan, "Quickly tell him what he wants to know." Bang bang. It was a pity that Yan Qishan didn't seem to be moved. When the 5th person's divine soul was destroyed, the other 4 people finally went crazy, and actually pounced on Yan Qishan with their divine souls. Although Yan Qishan's divine soul was stronger than the others, it couldn't withstand the tearing of the 4 people together. His divine soul was quickly torn apart, and he was in great pain. Long Chen said indifferently, "If you don't want to talk, then you can continue to bite like this. Whoever lives to the end, I will let him go. Kill them all, I'll talk, I'll talk." Yan Qishan's divine soul was full of holes. When he finished speaking, Long Chen grabbed the void with his right hand, and crushed everyone's divine souls. Chapter 571. Brothers. Yan Qishan stared at Long Chen's eyes and suddenly felt that this young man made him feel fear from the bottom of his heart. Just a moment ago, he was still calling everyone his brother. The next moment, he killed the souls of 9 Earth Immortals without batting an eyelid. Such a person was either extremely fickle or extremely strong-willed. No matter which one it was, he was an existence that no one dared to provoke. The woman you mentioned came from the north of the North region. She was personally brought back by the 10th Heavenly Palace's palace master and imprisoned in the prison of the Vajra demonic palace. Yan Qishan's eyes were filled with ridicule. When the people behind Ao Tsungcheong heard the name of the Vajra demonic palace, they immediately frowned and their faces turned serious. Long Chen nodded and said lightly, "Very good, your soul did not even have the slightest fluctuation. You are not lying. Then why are you still not letting go, Poochie?" Just as he finished speaking, his soul was completely shattered. Long Chen did not even look at him and said lightly, "I don't think I ever said that I would not kill you." Ao Tsungcheong shook his head slightly but did not say anything. In his eyes, Yan Qishan was indeed someone who deserved to be killed. Furthermore, Long Chen did not say that he would not kill this person. He only promised that if Yan Qishan told the truth, he would spare the other 9 people. Unfortunately, the souls of the other 9 people were already dead. The people behind Ao Tsungcheong said, "Yan Qishan is definitely not a kind person. Countless people have died in the 1,000 Miles volcano because of him." In the past, the 1,000 Miles volcano would go out to hunt every 3 months. This hunt is not to hunt wild beasts but to capture young girls. Long Chen nodded. Knowing where his mother was imprisoned, it was much easier to deal with there. Long Chen kept his things and was about to leave. He turned to the crowd and said, "We will definitely meet again in the future. Everyone should leave this place as soon as possible. It's best if you leave the Death Spirit Hall area." Ascension and the rest naturally knew about Long Chen's concerns. Yanqi Mountain was different from the other big clans. He was the 10,000 Miles Volcano Troop training instructor appointed by the Heavenly Palace. Today, they had caused a commotion in the 10,000 Miles Volcano Troop training grounds. There would definitely be a lot of trouble in the future. Whether it was them or Long Chen, it was best for them to act separately. After all, their current combat strength was not enough to fight against the Heavenly Palace. Ascension did not refuse. He signaled a few people behind him to guard outside the cave while he and Long Chen drank heartily in the cave. Brothers can be together without wine, but the day of parting is indispensable. The two did not say much, but Long Chen knew what Ascension was thinking. From the moment he ordered everyone not to use assassination techniques even if they were to die, he could see it. Ascension wanted to completely change the code of conduct of the Dark Star organization. He wanted to establish a new order. Perhaps this would be the embryonic form of the Dark Night God Kingdom in his previous life. Ascension was an extremely rigid person in certain aspects, but he was also an admirable person. At least in Long Chen's previous life, this was the only big brother that he recognized. Not even 3 rounds of wine had passed. The two had stopped drinking. Long Chen bid farewell to everyone and disappeared into the horizon. However, after only an hour, Long Chen returned to the cave once again. "Let me see who exactly came," Long Chen muttered to himself. Long Chen knew that within the 10,000 Miles volcano, he was definitely the center of attention. Now that Yanqi Mountain had died in his hands, the Heavenly Palace's pursuit would soon arrive and even discover this place. However, it was also because of this that Long Chen could not leave just like that. Instead of letting Ascension and the rest be hunted down with him, it was better to let everyone's attention be on him. Alone, he had to shoulder everything. Sitting down cross-legged, the Sword Spirit Woman had already appeared in front of Long Chen. Long Chen waved his hand and took out the essence of true fire. In the blink of an eye, such a terrifying sage-level material was swallowed by the sword, which made Long Chen feel rather strange. However, the woman was as usual and said coldly, "I will not appear again for 2 years. During this time, you can use the power of the holy weapon once. Take care." As the woman's voice fell, her figure gradually appeared in front of Long Chen. Long Chen laughed involuntarily. Looking at the woman's gradually disappearing figure, Yi Heilan's appearance appeared in his mind. Apart from her appearance and the few wings on her back that did not belong to a human, her cold temperament was indeed somewhat similar to Yi Heilan's. However, this coldness was even more superior than Yi Heilan's. It was more like an unattainable god. Long Chen shook his head and chuckled, not saying anything more. As for the power of the holy weapon, he did not take it to heart. In fact, he knew in his heart that this sword could reach the level of a holy weapon and could even be upgraded. In all likelihood, it was because of this woman. Otherwise, this sword would not be so strange. It needed to swallow sage-level materials just to be unsheathed. Most likely, it was not the sword that needed sage-level materials, but this woman. Long Chen shook his head. No matter what, at least this woman was not a threat to him. He took out the demon core formed by the true fire and celestial core. With a wave of his hand, the demon core floated a few meters in front of him. Refine. Long Chen's hands repeatedly moved in the air. Streaks of celestial core connected with the power of heaven and earth and transformed into tongues of fire that began to refine the demon core. Within the demon core, a centipede was hissing continuously. Its ferocious expression made one's scalp tingle. This demon core seemed to be only the size of a thumb and was filled with demon chi. In fact, if it were not for the demon core, this large amount of true fire and celestial core would not be so condensed. According to Long Chen's guess, all the true fire condensed by the 10,000 miles volcano was most likely in this demon core. Otherwise, it would not have caused a demon beast to mutate and possess the combat power of a heaven immortal. On the other side, within the 10,000 miles volcano, Ma Xiao was at the peak of his life. Although his cultivation was at the initial stage of the Earth's celestial stage, he had relied on some unorthodox methods to raise his cultivation. However, no one would have thought that all the people at the later stage of the Earth's celestial stage, including Yanqi Mountain, would die a violent death. At this moment, he had taken over the 100,000 soldiers of the 10,000 miles volcano. He did not intend to pursue them. Instead, he directly reported the news to the Middle Three Palace. Later, he even did something that he thought was smart. At the same time, he also reported it to the Upper Three Palaces. Apart from the Death Hall, the three lower three palaces, no matter if it was the 10th Heavenly Palace, the Middle Three Palaces, or the Upper Three Palaces, they all knew about what had happened at the 10,000 miles volcano. A young man with a holy sword led a few people and killed the Death Hall's training instructor and the later stage of the Earth's celestial stage powerhouse who had saved his life. Tisk, I'll leave the mission of hunting down the holy soldiers to them. It's enough to be the training instructor of the 10,000 miles volcano. Ma Xiao muttered to himself with satisfaction. He had even thought about going out to hunt the next day, capturing hundreds of women, and then serving them together in bed and indulging for a few days and nights. Swoosh! 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 Just as he finished speaking, the sound of thunder came from outside the door. There was also the whistling sound of a sword cutting across the sky. Immediately, a heat wave passed through the courtyard tent and hit them in the face. Chapter 572. The white bone banner Ma Xiao's face was filled with rage as he charged out, his head held high. However, the first thing he saw when he stepped out was a volcano. However, the volcano had been sliced in half. The towering, incomparably sturdy volcano had been split in half. In particular, the flames within it had actually condensed into ice dregs, and a wave of extremely cold air rushed towards his face. Ma Xiao's entire body trembled as he sucked in a mouthful of turbid air. His back was covered in cold sweat. He hurriedly looked up and saw two people in black ghost robes standing high in the sky. The Dark Ghost Ruler and the Heavenly Palace Enforcers. When Ma Xiao saw the robes on their bodies, he fell to his knees with a thud. He'd never imagined that after notifying the Upper Three Palaces and the Middle Three Palaces, the Heavenly Palace Enforcers would come. The Heavenly Palace Enforcers were all sky immortals with unparalleled battle prowess. They were personally taught by the Dark Ghost Ruler and were once the 10th Heavenly Palace's Blazing Sun disciples. The 10 regions had 10 Blazing Suns. Blazing Suns could only be promoted from the Heavenly Palace's stars. Simply put, they were the strongest of their region's younger generation. The two wore ghost robes, and ghost chi rose around them. Their bodies were filled with a strange, icy air. It was a man and a woman. Their faces were terrifyingly pale, and even though they were men, they were filled with a sinister aura. They held swords in their hands and slowly looked at Ma Xiao. The woman was extremely beautiful, but as she spoke, a dead spirit was about to rush out of her face. Her voice was extremely unpleasant to hear. The two of us came today to seize the holy weapon, but we need to borrow your army of 100,000. Ma Xiao didn't dare raise his head. His entire face was pressed into the yellow soil. We wouldn't dare, we wouldn't dare. The two enforcers are free to command the 100,000 soldiers as you wish. Ma Xiao hurriedly said. The moment he finished speaking, the man and woman laughed sinisterly. Their voices made his scalp tingle. It was as if two evil spirits were crouching on his shoulders. He buried his head even deeper into the scorching sand. Kaboom! However, he still heard a series of explosions, and then a series of earth quaking and mountains collapsing. What followed were endless roars and shrill cries. Ma Xiao did not dare to raise his head. His crotch was already full of filth. He had never been so scared. Crack crack. Drops of blood flowed out from both sides of his ears. He actually used his immortal energy to shatter his ears, and only then did he manage to stop the anguished howls of the ghosts around him. After an unknown period of time, when all the sounds around him disappeared, Ma Xiao felt a bone-piercing cold. He didn't dare to move. Instead, he used his immortal energy to condense his flesh and blood again and reconstruct his ears. He was like an ostrich, his head sunk deep into the ground. Even the immortal energy couldn't isolate the roars of energy, causing him to suffer a huge impact. Finally, the coldness around him grew stronger and stronger. Only then did he slowly raise his head. But at this moment, his pupils dilated rapidly. The land of volcanoes that stretched for thousands of miles was now filled with ice corpses. The towering volcano that had been split apart had already disappeared, and in its place were countless 10-meter-long cyan ice spears. He trembled as he walked forward. There were corpses everywhere. Every corpse's expression was extremely twisted, as if they had seen countless terrifying things the moment before they died. Ma Xiao hugged his head and cried bitterly. Sometimes, he would roar and laugh. His Tao heart had collapsed, and he had become a madman. Not a single 100,000 dead Spirit Hall soldiers survived. Their bodies were still there, but their souls had all disappeared, leaving behind only soaring resentment. A man and a woman, both wearing black robes, had a white banner swaying behind them. There seemed to be countless faces on the white banners, twisted and filled with resentment. That person must have gone to the Dead Spirit Hall after he left. Although Master specially opened a passage to send us here, it's extremely difficult to track him down in a short time. No matter. When this person entered the land of volcanoes that stretched for thousands of miles, he came into contact with two of the soldiers. We can just use the ghosts they transformed into to guide us. Just as the woman finished speaking, the white banner behind her moved, and two ferocious ghosts appeared. These two ghosts were the two people who had driven Longchen into the mine that day. Streaks of black chi fell from the woman's fingertips. The ghosts seemed to have suffered great pain, and finally turned into two small ghost shadows that escaped into the void and rushed toward the courtyard. The two looked at each other and immediately followed. However, as their footsteps slowed down, their expressions gradually darkened. The man said coldly, "This person actually didn't go far. He arrived here in just a day. According to Master, this matter has to be done cleanly. It's best if everyone is here. Otherwise, if we split up, we'll have to split up." Inside the cave, Longchen's eyes suddenly opened. Although he knew that there was a special teleportation place between the various halls, he didn't expect someone to find him in just 2 days. However, when he put away the true fire, immortal essence, and demon core and walked out of the cave, his expression changed drastically. Two heaven immortal powerhouses wearing the same black robes as Yukingmo. Longchen frowned and stared at the two people, but his body was already bursting with immortal chi. When the two people looked at Longchen, their expressions also darkened. The man snorted coldly. "Why are you alone? Where are the others who went into the 10,000-mile volcano with you?" Longchen stared at the two people and said in a low voice, "You two don't look like you're here for revenge. Moreover, perhaps there's no one who needs you to take revenge now." After he finished speaking, Longchen's eyes fell on the two white bone banners behind the two people. The evil chi, resentment chi, and ghost chi on them had all reached a shocking level. With Longchen's divine sense, he naturally discovered something strange. The ghosts inside were the 100,000 troops that he saw in the 10,000-mile volcano that day. The woman with skin as white as a corpse didn't seem to hear Longchen's words. Her eyes moved back and forth on Longchen's body before she said indifferently, "Hand over the divine weapon." A cold smile flashed across Longchen's mouth, but he already knew what was going on. The two people came here not because they went into the 10,000-mile volcano and killed Yan Qishan a few days ago. It was because of the divine weapon in his hand. This was probably the intention of the ruler of the Nether Ghost. Explode. The moment the woman's voice fell, Longchen's figure had already retreated rapidly. Following his shout, the array in all directions exploded with a loud bang. These arrays were not of a high level and were set up by the few people who went with Ascension. However, Longchen had slightly modified them and made them one-time arrays. The sound of the explosion caused the mountain range to tremble, sending rocks flying for tens of thousands of feet. Chapter 573. War Sky Coiling Dragon. Longchen quickly retreated, and the sword in his hand madly slashed behind him. However, something unexpected happened. The ghosts in the white bone banner fell like a tsunami towards the holy sword in his hand. Before the holy sword was unsheathed, Longchen felt as if it was covered with countless mines, and it was so heavy that it was about to fly out of his hand. This is not the weapon of the ghost ruler, but the soul-suppressing white bone banner. Longchen's face was as cold as ice. Only now did he fully understand the origin of this thing. It was not a weapon from the ghost ruler. It was a weapon that transcended the ruler. A weapon that transcended the ruler wanted to snatch it from his hand. Roar. Longchen shook his body, and his body soared into the sky. His bloodline body evolved. Rumble. For a time, the wind and clouds changed color, and the whole sky seemed to shake. The two black-robed heavenly immortal powerhouses holding the white bone banner also stiffened, staring at the sky. Above the sky, a giant dragon tens of thousands of feet long was entrenched in the void. Its eyes seemed to be filled with the flames of war, and wherever it passed, the space was scorched and distorted. Under the dragon's entrenched body, it had 3 heads. One of them was like a flood dragon, and the other was like a giant python. It was extremely terrifying. Below it were 4 legs that looked like heaven-suppressing pillars, covered with scale inscriptions, each of which seemed to be a killing array. War Sky Coiling Dragon. The heavenly dragon Vane, the 7th avatar, the land war god's body, at this moment, in the 9th heaven, 8th heaven, 3rd heaven, 2nd heaven, and 1st heaven, a total of 6 figures soared into the sky. Including the 3 divine beast war souls of the ancient desolate land, each of them had a brilliance flowing around their body, and an ancient divine beast appeared 3 inches above their head. As Longchen awakened the war sky coiling dragon body for the first time, ancient aura poured into their bodies. At the same time, in the 10th heaven, in the heavenly palace, the ghost ruler's eyes were full of shock. His figure turned into a black light and rushed towards Longchen. As Longchen transformed into the 7th avatar of the heavenly dragon Vane, the entire 10th heaven was in an uproar. Countless Earth celestial stage powerhouses of the ancient race rushed toward Longchen. Withdraw. Longchen transformed into his heaven-battling coiled dragon body and stared at the 2 heavenly celestial stage powerhouses with cold eyes. With a loud roar, the 3 streaks of golden light forcibly sucked the holy sword back into their stomachs. At that very moment, the sacred weapon's light dimmed, as if it had been greatly suppressed. When the man and woman saw Longchen's terrifying bloodline, even though they were heavenly immortals, they still felt their mouths go dry and they couldn't help but retreat 10,000 meters away. When the man saw that more and more people were gathering around him and observing from 10,000 miles away, his face turned completely green. 2 heaven immortals were actually intimidated by an essence immortal. The woman did not feel anything, but the man felt a burning sensation on his face. The man's immortal energy circulated in his body, and he instantly soared into the sky. As a heavenly celestial stage powerhouse, his immortal energy had almost materialized, and its purity had long reached an appalling level. Immortal technique, Ghost King Sword, slash for me. The man roared, and the ink-black sword in his hand streaked across the sky, and countless ghosts appeared from the white banner behind him. As the sword fell, the countless ghosts turned into sword rays. Countless ghosts suddenly appeared around Longchen's huge bloodline avatar, as if to drag him into the netherworld. Such an evil sword ray made many people who were watching from afar feel a chill down their spines. Bloodline ability, Heaven Battling Judgment. Longchen's voice came from the huge dragon head, and it was like thunder. As his voice fell, his huge body emitted a dazzling divine light. the head of the flood dragon, the head of the giant snake, and the head of the giant dragon spat out lightning like rays of light at the same time. Each ray of light was 100 meters wide and stretched endlessly. Wherever they passed, there was a burst of explosive sounds, and then they intertwined together and fell toward the black-robed man's sword, rumble. A series of earth-shattering sounds seemed to cause the entire space to tremble, and gullies stretched for thousands of miles on the ground. The heavenly celestial stage powerhouse was sent flying, and countless ghosts were crushed. As for Long Chen's bloodline avatar, his body was filled with death chi, and a wound that was so deep that his bones could be seen. Hiss! Waves of exclamations came from all directions. In the past few days, Long Chen's name had been known by many forces in the 10th heaven. Everyone knew that he was only a virtual celestial. But now, he was fighting a heavenly celestial with his virtual celestial cultivation. This was simply beyond everyone's expectations. The difference between the two of them was 2 whole stages, which was close to 20 small stages. Heavenly Dragon Vein. This person has the Heavenly Dragon Vein, which was ranked first on the Bloodline Azure Sky roll a few days ago. This person was born in the ancient desolate land, and he actually stepped into the heaven domain at such a young age, and he can fight a heavenly celestial with his virtual celestial cultivation. Unfortunately, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. He should never have provoked the heavenly palace. Everyone kept exclaiming, but they shook their heads and sighed. The woman who had not made a move all this time seemed to be shocked by Long Chen's combat strength. The reason they killed 100,000 people from the Myriad-Mile volcano was to completely suppress the Saint weapon, and then easily take down Long Chen. But now, no one had expected that Long Chen would actually be able to fight a heavenly immortal without a Saint weapon. Attack together, use the ghost banner. Half of the avatar's body was blasted into pieces, but under the circulation of black chi, it recovered in an instant. His voice was extremely low. When one's cultivation reached the intermediate stage of the heavenly celestial stage, one's physical body's recovery ability was extremely strong. Half of his body recovered in just 2 breaths. On the other side, Long Chen was the same. The recovery speed of the avatar's physical body was actually on par with his. The man and woman once again turned into dim lights and rushed toward Long Chen. The 2 of them blocked Long Chen's path of retreat, one from the front and one from the back. The white bone banner in their hands expanded in the wind, and it actually became tens of thousands of feet long. It was like 2 huge cages, imprisoning densely packed ghosts. Ghost King, descend. The immoral power in their bodies surged like a tide. The long swords in their hands were constantly waving in the air, and lines of patterns disappeared into the void. Nearly 100,000 ghosts were rapidly devouring each other. In just 100 breaths, only 2 ghost gods were left standing between heaven and earth. 20,000 living ghosts to suppress your saint weapon. 80,000 living ghosts to condense into 2 ghost kings. Today, you will die a worthy death. The man shouted sternly. Long Chen looked at the 2 people standing on the shoulders of the 2 ghost kings. A demon core had unknowingly appeared in front of his huge body, and he swallowed it in one gulp. Then, thousands of starry sky immortal items were thrown into his mouth at the same time. Devour. On Long Chen's bloodline body, the huge eyes were filled with madness. Immediately, bursts of explosive aura sprang out from his body, setting off waves of air that swept in all directions. Chapter 574. Serene white bones. Everyone stared at Long Chen. Even though they were tens of thousands of miles away, they could still clearly see him throwing 1,000 celestial items into his mouth. Every celestial item contained a powerful medicinal power. Even a heavenly immortal powerhouse would not dare to swallow them directly. This was also why a god-level alchemist had a high status even in the 10 directions celestial domain. But now, Long Chen had swallowed 1,000 of them, in that demon core. They did not know that the demon core was the origin of the primordial fire. In 2 days, Long Chen had only refined 50% of the celestial core power. But now, he had swallowed it all. Boom! 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 Long Chen's huge body let out an ear-piercing roar as if a volcano was erupting inside his body. Divine light flowed through his limbs and bones. Terrifying wounds appeared on his huge bloodline body, like broken walls and ravines. Bloodline ability, Eye of Lightning Magic. Bloodline ability, 5 elements stripping. Bloodline ability, Long Chen's heaven-battling coiling dragon body was surrounded by countless phantoms. They were actually 6 huge dragons of different forms. In an instant, 7 bloodline abilities were used at the same time. Along the way, Long Chen had awakened 7 types of heavenly dragon bloodline dharma bodies. But he had never been so crazy before. The 7 bloodline abilities were used at the same time, and the entire sky was overshadowed. Wind, rain, thunder, and raging flames surged. Many powerhouses who were watching from tens of thousands of miles away were aghast and frantically retreated. They could feel the terror of this attack. The 2 heavenly immortal powerhouses in black robes and the ghost kings that were refined from the souls of countless powerhouses in the volcano had no way to retreat. The immortal power in their bodies surged into the ghost kings under their feet. The 2 ghost kings were like ghosts as they directly attacked Long Chen's huge body. Everywhere they passed turned into scorched earth. Ghosts were everywhere, and the ground was full of wailing ghosts and howling wolves. Swoosh! As the attacks intersected, a blinding light instantly filled the entire space. A vast and mighty ripple carrying a complex and mighty force swept out. Many Earth Celestial Stage cultivators and even some Heaven Celestial Stage cultivators of the big clans who were watching from tens of thousands of miles away spat out mouthfuls of blood and protected their clansmen behind them. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they stared ahead. Who was the winner? In the sky, Long Chen's body was losing its divine light at a speed visible to the naked eye. In front of him, there was no one except for the aura of death and countless ghosts on the scorched earth. Plop! Long Chen's entire body fell to the ground. There was no longer any trace of immortal energy in his body. Shusan! Shusan! Long Chen looked as if he would collapse at any moment, but his eyes were fixed on the distant sky. He kept muttering under his breath, and his speed became faster and faster. At this moment, any one of them would be able to kill Long Chen. However, no one dared to rush out. Therefore, Long Chen did not dare to collapse. He was still standing straight. He knew that once he collapsed, people from all directions would pounce on him like hungry wolves. He was only in the Essence Celestial Stage. Killing a Heaven Celestial Stage cultivator without using a sacred weapon had caused him to lose all of his combat power. There was a difference of 20 small realms between them. The difference between a Heaven Celestial Stage cultivator and an Essence Celestial Stage cultivator was like the difference between a piece of black iron and a piece of dirt. If Long Chen did not have the true fire, celestial core power, and thousands of celestial items in the starry sky, which allowed him to erupt with unprecedented combat power in an instant, his chances of winning would be slim. Even so, at this moment, his great emperor's body was almost unable to bear such a burden. It was as if it was riddled with holes. His foundation was damaged and could not be repaired in a short period of time. Long Chen's eyes fell on the horizon. The sky suddenly became gloomy, as if boundless blood had been poured into the night sky. Countless powerhouses, who were still shocked by Long Chen's killing of a Heaven Celestial Stage cultivator, felt a chill from their souls. Many Heaven Celestials and Earth Celestials directly knelt on the ground. Welcome, Palace Master of the 10th Heavenly Palace. Welcome, Palace Master of the 10th Heavenly Palace. In the blink of an eye, the dark and gloomy sky appeared in front of them. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that the sky was filled with the souls of babies and women. Each soul was over 1,000 feet in size, covering the sky. Such a scene made countless people tremble in fear, and their scalps went numb. Under the sky filled with souls, a man was standing. This man was the ruler of the ghost world, Yu-Bai-Gu. Yu-Bai-Gu, you can't see the soul, the dark sky is filled with blood ghosts. This was a sentence passed down by word of mouth in the 10th heaven. Anyone he killed would be left with white bones, and their souls would be refined into ghosts. Wherever he went, the sky would be filled with blood ghosts and ghosts. The moment Yu Baigu appeared, the entire space seemed to quiet down. His eyes slowly fell on Longchen, and he said playfully, "First you killed Yu Qingmo, then you killed my 12th son and 10th daughter. If you can still survive in the 10th heaven, how can I, Yu Baigu, still have any face left?" After Yu Baigu finished speaking, he flicked his finger, and the thousands of ghosts in the sky behind him turned into a huge ghost claw that grabbed at Longchen. Wherever it passed, even space was torn apart by the sharp claw, revealing the space cracks behind it. Because of the innate purple qi in the heaven, space was extremely condensed. To be able to do this, one could see the power of this casual strike. Just this casual strike alone could crush any heaven celestial in an instant. Under the ruler realm, no one was his opponent. Longchen stood in place. Seeing the huge ghost claw grabbing at him, he laughed loudly and shouted coldly, "You dare to kill me!" Buzz! As Longchen's voice fell, everyone didn't understand what he meant. Yu Baigu was the strongest in the 10th heaven. At this moment, killing Longchen was like crushing an ant for him. Why wouldn't he dare? However, as soon as Longchen's voice fell, the ghost claw that had fallen less than 100 meters in front of Longchen suddenly stopped. Yu Baigu frowned, and his eyes narrowed into a line. He stared coldly at Longchen and said, "Even if I kill you, so what?" Although his voice fell, the ghost claw still didn't fall. Longchen closed his eyes at some point, and a huge amount of divine sense power swept out crazily. A touch of madness appeared in his eyes, divine sense backlash. He still had one last secret technique. But once he used this technique, he would completely become a cripple. Even if he lived, he only had a small chance of recovering his cultivation. The current situation had reached the point of no return. Yu Baigu wanted to kill him because of the saint weapon, so he didn't care about the Transcendence ruler's words. Yu Baigu seemed to have seen that Longchen still had a trick up his sleeve. His words were just a stall for time. He suddenly snorted coldly, seemingly determined to kill Longchen. Chapter 575. The day of return. Under the bombardment of the huge ghost claw, 5 cliff-like caverns were left in the ground. However, the ghost ruler's expression was gloomy. He knew that at the last moment, someone had rescued Longchen. The ghost ruler stared at the figure in the sky that had crossed tens of thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye. He flew up, and the ghosts behind him turned into 2 wings. However, just as he was about to leap into the air, his entire body suddenly stiffened. A rainbow-colored brilliance had actually landed precisely on the boundless ghosts above his head. Poochie! The wings that the ghost ruler was about to form were instantly shattered, and nearly half of the ghosts were turned into ashes. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was as pale as paper. His body trembled, and his eyes were filled with fear. "If you disobey again, die." A divine sense that only the ghost ruler could capture entered his mind, causing him to break out in cold sweat. He knew that this sentence came from the transcendent ruler of the first heaven. At this moment, Longchen and the figure in the sky had already disappeared without a trace. The ghost ruler had no intention of pursuing and quickly retreated to the 10th heavenly palace. Just as he was about to leave, he saw a series of bloody lights appear in the sky tens of thousands of kilometers away. 2 years later, on the day of my return, I will turn you into bones. The ghost ruler looked back with a gloomy expression, but he only sneered and disappeared. After everything calmed down, the various forces from all directions appeared and approached the place where Longchen had fought. Looking at the ravines on the ground, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. No one could understand how Longchen, a virtual immortal, could defeat a celestial immortal powerhouse. Do you think this guy called Longchen will be able to defeat Yu Baigu in 2 years? The person's voice was extremely low. 2 years? This person is already a virtual immortal. Defeating a celestial immortal would leave behind an indelible scar, let alone defeating a ruler. It's impossible. Baigu Ghost, Baigu Ghost, Baigu Ghost, Baigu Ghost, has already turned countless people into Baigu Ghosts. Who can turn him into a skeleton? The master of the heavenly palace has a sovereign level of cultivation. However, it's not something that can be killed by someone who can defeat a sovereign. The power of the heavenly palace is not something that can be defeated by a single person. Everyone could not help but sigh when they sensed the vast and mighty immortal energy remaining in this place. There were even people who wanted to search for the two white bone banners, but in the end, they found nothing. On the other side, Longchen was lying on the back of a young man. This person was none other than Shu San of the Imperial Academy. He used his immortal energy to secure Longchen on his back while he wrote on the golden book with a purple gold brush in his right hand. He was ranked first on the Bloodline Azure Sky rankings. The Heavenly Dragon Vein, all the Dharmakayas do not interfere with each other. Each of them has a special ability. If they have enough power, they can. Shu San seemed to be extremely excited, sometimes writing and sometimes laughing loudly. However, his footsteps became faster and faster. Gradually, he disappeared from this space. After an unknown amount of time, Longchen gradually opened his eyes. At this moment, he was still on Shu San's back. However, the scenery around him was moving backwards like silk threads. The speed of the mountain of books had already exceeded Longchen's imagination. Where are you taking me? Longchen's voice was extremely weak. At the last moment, although he did not use the final secret technique, now that he relaxed, he felt as if his body had been completely hollowed out. That feeling of emptiness made him feel as if he was in an abyss. Shu San seemed to still be immersed in the joy that the Heavenly Dragon Vein brought him. He only answered subconsciously, Imperial Academy, the price you agreed on with me that day was to bring some things to the desolate land in 10 days. Now, there are still 2 days left. When Longchen saw that Shu San had no intention of talking to him, he focused his gaze on the golden book in his hand. He saw that the golden book had recorded almost all of his actions today. This made Longchen not know whether to laugh or cry. Now, it seemed that Shu San had always been near Longchen. The reason he waited until the last moment was probably to let Longchen use the Heavenly Dragon Vein's power. Longchen shook his head but did not say anything. In reality, the reason he guessed that Shu San would save him was also because of the Heavenly Dragon Vein. If he died in this world, the Heavenly Dragon Vein would no longer exist. This was indeed the case. Although Shu San had delayed for a long time, he was still unwilling to see Longchen die. Imperial Academy? What kind of place is this? Why don't you just send me back to the desolate land? Longchen said in a low voice. After today's battle, he was somewhat worried. If the Nether Ghost ruler continued to search for him and forcefully opened the passage to the desolate land would once again become chaotic because of him. At this moment, Jian San, Qing Xian, Yi Hailan, and the others were still in the desolate land. However, Shu San did not pay attention to him. After a while, he suddenly replied, "The Imperial Academy does things according to the rules. You said that you would bring something to the desolate land. You are such a big thing. If you admit that you are something, I will bring you to the desolate land in 2 days." Hearing this, Longchen could only remain silent. Thinking about it again. If he did not return to the desolate land, the chances of the Nether Ghost ruler opening the passage to the desolate land would be much lower. The tearing pain in his dantian pulled Longchen's thoughts back to reality. He could not help but smile bitterly. In his current situation, there was no use thinking about this at all. Longchen simply lay down on Shu San's back and fell asleep. The Imperial Academy, the most mysterious organization in his previous life. Longchen was faintly curious about it. In his previous life, in order to find the Primal Chaos Golden Codex, he could be said to have traveled all over the 10 heavens and even went deep into the endless starry sky. However, he had never seen the Imperial Academy. It was just that the disciples of the Imperial Academy were everywhere. Shu San did not pay attention to Longchen. However, his feet gradually slowed down. The scenery around the two of them no longer rapidly retreated. Gradually, they could see what it looked like. The thread-like colors gradually turned into towering ancient trees and countless strange flowers and plants. Shu San stopped. His feet were very steady and he was able to hear everything clearly. Just a few steps in front of them and 100 meters directly above them, a white jade plaque that was tens of meters wide was suspended high in the sky. The white jade was the bone, and the purple sand was the words. It was the Imperial Academy, for big words. On the left and right sides, there were 2 white jade boards suspended in the air. On the left side was written, holding a purple gold pen in hand, collecting all the things of the past. On the right side was written, stepping on the endless river can inscribe eternal aspirations. Shu San slowly put Long Chen down. The tearing feeling made Long Chen's face as pale as paper, but he still insisted on standing. Seeing the situation here, Long Chen could not help but frown. Chapter 576. Mysterious Grand Elder Long Chen could clearly sense that the concentration of purple chi here was almost the same as in the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain. This place should be in the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain. But this was what puzzled Long Chen the most. If the Imperial Academy existed in the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain, there was no way you wouldn't know. Long Chen didn't have time to think before Shu San said, "Come with me, there must be many people in the Imperial Academy who want to see you." As Shu San spoke, he ignored the injuries on Long Chen's body and walked forward. After stepping through the Imperial Academy's door, there was a flight of stairs in the air. The white jade stairs were not connected. They meandered up to the sky, like rows of crystals floating in the air in a regular pattern. They emitted a dazzling radiance under the sunlight. When Long Chen stepped on the first flight of stairs, he stopped and saw Shu San leap more than 1,000 feet away. After a while, he turned back. Long Chen smiled bitterly. "You didn't let me die in the hands of the Dark Ghost Ruler, but you want me to fall to my death at the bottom of these stairs." He had no immortal power left, and his body was full of injuries. He was no different from an ordinary person. Although he had taken some pills, such serious injuries were not enough to recover in a short time. Shu San was stunned, then he supported Long Chen with one hand and walked up the stairs again. He muttered, "When you killed a heavenly immortal as a virtual immortal, I didn't see you in such a miserable state. TSK, you broke the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain's record of fighting above your level, 2 whole stages." Long Chen shook his head and didn't say anything. In the eyes of others, he was in the limelight. But he saw what he lacked, and that was strength. Along the way, the speed at which his cultivation improved could be said to be unprecedented and would never be surpassed in the future. However, he had forgotten about it. Now, he was facing the danger of death at every moment. If he didn't solve the problem of transcending ruler and step into the ruler realm, he wouldn't be safe. Even his family and friends were in danger. Long Chen moved around and stepped on the winding white jade staircase. However, he felt like he had seen the light at the end of the tunnel. In the originally empty sky, there wasn't just a single hall. Instead, the sky was filled with palaces, each of which was dazzling in gold and jade. From time to time, a 17 or 18-year-old youth would fly out. Each of them held a purple gold pen in their hand and a golden book in their hand. They looked almost the same as Shu San. "Shu San, hurry up and go to the Bloodline Green Cloud Palace first, then the Heaven Domain Strange Affairs Palace, and then the Saint Weapon Palace." The two had just stood there, and before 3 breaths had passed, a passing youth called out to Shu San. These people were all in their 20s. It was fine if they were young, but what puzzled Long Chen the most was that none of them had any cultivation. However, their speed had reached an astonishing level. Otherwise, Shu San wouldn't have been able to rescue him from the hands of a sovereign. The Imperial Academy was truly a mysterious place. Upon hearing this, Shu San looked at Long Chen, who he was supporting, and couldn't help but reveal an excited smile on his face. It was obvious that Long Chen would become famous in the Imperial Academy because of him. Shu San straightened his clothes and led Long Chen to the Green Cloud Palace. The Green Cloud Palace was the closest to them. It was also the 3rd hall after the white jade stairs. There were many stone statues around the hall. Shu San saw that they were about to step into the hall. He said to Long Chen, "There are a total of 7 statues in this hall. Each of them is the original body of a bloodline on the Bloodline Green Cloud Proclamation. In fact, this is also the reason why I brought you here." As he spoke, the two stepped into the hall. The interior of the hall was very spacious, but also very deserted. Looking left and right, there were only a few dozen pillars that supported the hall. The pillars were also intertwined with the patterns of divine beasts. Shio, shio, shio. However, just as Long Chen and Shu San stepped over the threshold, young men appeared one after another from all directions. Although these men weren't as young as Shu San, they all looked like young men. They were probably less than 20 years old. Although Long Chen's body was weak now, his divine sense wasn't injured. His brows furrowed as he glanced around. These people were really too strange. Each of them was actually only about 20 years old. And this 100-meter area wasn't spacious at all. It was just that their movements were too fast for the naked eye to catch. "You are Long Chen, the owner of the Heavenly Dragon Vein?" one of them asked. His eyes were fixed on Long Chen, as if he was very excited. Long Chen cupped his fists slightly and agreed. Buzz. As soon as he agreed, the divine beasts on the two carved stone pillars closest to him seemed to come alive. Their bell-like eyes gradually opened. 3 beams of divine light fell on Long Chen from their eyes. Long Chen didn't resist. He clearly felt that there was no killing intent here. After a few breaths, the people in the Green Cloud Hall were in an uproar. "You're still alive after suffering such serious injuries. Your body is really made of iron. It seems that you have to go to another hall today. This person's body is special. I'm afraid it's not weaker than many bodies from ancient times. Let's get rid of the hidden dangers in his body first. Otherwise, with such injuries, I'm afraid he'll need at least half a year to recuperate." The divine light swept across Long Chen's body. The people here seemed to know his body's condition clearly. When the light dissipated, a strange fragrance suddenly assailed his nostrils. It was full of rare treasures. Multicolored light landed around Long Chen, making him feel as if all his pores had opened up. Bone-nourishing purple cloud grass, starry sky purple gold ginseng. Long Chen subconsciously called out, his pupils constricting. But even he could only see the origin of 7 or 8 spiritual herbs. These spiritual herbs were not from the starry sky, but their medicinal properties were even better. Just the 7 or 8 spiritual herbs that Long Chen mentioned had long been extinct in the 10 Directions celestial domain. They were only left in Long Chen's inherited memory of alchemy. As for the other spiritual herbs, he had never heard of them. They were probably extinct in ancient times. What kind of place was this imperial palace? The spiritual herbs that were casually used were actually so rare. Seeing Long Chen's appearance, Shu San couldn't help but tease him. His hands turned into a shadow, and in a flash, all the spiritual herbs were crushed and pushed towards Long Chen. The light of the spiritual herbs drowned Long Chen's body. Long Chen's complexion began to become rosy at a speed visible to the naked eye. These spiritual herbs had not been refined into pills, but they had the effect of reviving flesh and bones. After nearly 20 hours, Long Chen's eyes suddenly opened. A bright light appeared in his eyes, and it was as if a flood dragon was roaring in his body. His cultivation had advanced to the medium stage of the Earth celestial stage, the 3rd level. Long Chen stared at the people present and clasped his hands slightly. He said in a deep voice, "No matter what the reason is, I, Long Chen, will remember your kindness. Okay, these things may be rare to you, but they're nothing in the Imperial Palace. If you want to thank us, tell us what the 9 divine beasts accompanying the Heavenly Dragon Vein are." Chapter 577. In the Palace of Time, Long Chen was stunned for a moment, but he told them everything calmly. The 9 divine beast fighting souls, inherited from the Heavenly Dragon Veins, found their bodies, and were also known as the Heavenly Fighting Souls. As his cultivation increased, these fighting souls would gradually recover their former fighting strength and completely revert to their ancestors. Long Chen's introduction made everyone thirsty for knowledge, and the purple gold pens in their hands kept recording. Although Long Chen's body had recovered, he still felt exhausted. Everyone in the hall was like a person thirsting for knowledge, wanting to dig out all the information about bloodlines from his mouth. It was not until the next morning that Shu San followed Long Chen to the second hall. The second was the Divine Weapon Hall. The third was the Hall of Strange Affairs. The fourth, Long Chen entered countless halls, but there was no time for him to stay in the Bloodline Azure Cloud Hall. But it still took him a full day. 2 days had passed, and Long Chen only felt exhausted, but Shu San, who was beside him, had an inexplicably rosy complexion at this moment. Just as Long Chen had seen, he himself was simply a delicious cake to the Heavenly Academy. There were many halls in the Heavenly Academy, and each hall represented a list or a series of records, and Long Chen's arrival today almost filled in most of the gaps. For example, the Divine Weapon ranking changed, and the Bone Soul Stealing Staff was removed from the Divine Weapon ranking. The Bloodline ranking added the 9 Divine Beast bloodlines, and the details of the Heavenly Dragon veins were filled in. This series of events made Shu San's status rise rapidly, and the purple gold pen in his hand even changed to a green-gold color. His clothes were also changed to the same clothes as those in the hall, and his status rose a lot. Long Chen stared at Shu San and said in a low voice, "Shouldn't you talk to me about the people in the Heavenly Academy? You obviously have no cultivation, so what's the point of doing these boring things?" When Shu San heard Long Chen's words, his face suddenly darkened. He snorted coldly and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to a place." As Shu San spoke, he passed through the many halls and once again stepped onto the white jade staircase to fly higher. At this moment, Long Chen had already recovered his cultivation and naturally followed closely behind. But the more he walked, the more frightened Long Chen became. The stairs to the heavens seemed to be endless. Shu San's speed became faster and faster. Long Chen only managed to keep up with him after using his true immortal level movement technique. It had to be said that everyone in the Imperial Academy was strong enough to look down on the entire 10 Directions Heaven domain. When Long Chen stopped and looked back, he was stunned on the spot. Countless palaces and more than 100 steps were already like stars in the sky. Looking from top to bottom, it actually looked like a resplendent ancient book, and those palaces were the densely packed words on the book. At this moment, Long Chen and Shu San actually stepped into the endless starry sky. Standing in the starry sky, they could still see the palace. It was really strange. This is the 9th heaven. The Imperial Academy is in the 9th heaven. No, this is not the current 9th heaven. Long Chen's face changed again and again. Shu San stood behind him and took a deep look at Long Chen. Then he said lightly, "You don't seem to be as simple as we thought. According to the records of the Imperial Academy, you came from the ancient desolate land and have never set foot in the 9th heaven. How do you know that this place is the 9th heaven?" Long Chen didn't speak, he just stared at the bottom. Immediately after, he suddenly realized something and said in a daze, "This place is the 9th heaven of the ancient era. The Imperial Academy, eternal records. So that's how it is." Long Chen remembered the 2 sentences on the door of the Imperial Academy when he first entered it. When Shu San heard Long Chen's words, he didn't answer. He just slowly pointed his right hand towards the depths of the starry sky. Long Chen looked in the direction of his finger and saw a majestic galaxy in the endless starry sky. In the center of the galaxy, there was a statue holding an ancient book. The statue sometimes turned into nothingness, sometimes solidified, as if the Buddha was alive. Shu San's face was full of piety. There are endless laws in the world, and naturally there are thousands of Daos in the heart. This is my belief. The great prophet. Long Chen's heart was already set off stormy waves. The Imperial Academy. If he guessed correctly, this place has always existed in the long river of time. In his eyes, the so-called Great Prophet only existed in the starry sky of 100,000 years ago. Long Chen looked at the sky in a daze. The mystery of the Imperial Academy made even him feel confused. The two returned to the main hall at dawn. Many young people called elders didn't seem to care that Long Chen knew the secret of this place. 2 days had passed, and Long Chen knew that it was time to leave. According to his agreement with Shu San would bring him to the ancient desolate land today. Shu San knocked on the door and entered. Beside him was a middle-aged man. This made Longchen feel a little strange. At least he had entered many halls in the past 2 days and met many people, but only the middle-aged man in front of him looked like he was in front of him. Shu San stood beside the middle-aged man with a respectful expression. The middle-aged man stared at Longchen and said with a smile, "You have the heavenly dragon vein and the body of a great emperor. Both of them haven't appeared in the world for countless years. Your future is limitless. The Imperial Academy is willing to be friends with you, but I hope that you won't spread the news of the Imperial Academy to others and cause unnecessary trouble." Longchen nodded. He knew that if what he saw and heard yesterday were to spread, even the sovereigns of various domains would rush over like herds. This might not be a threat to the Imperial Academy, but it would cause unnecessary trouble for them to travel in the Heaven domain. Seeing that Longchen agreed, the middle-aged man nodded and began to draw in the air with a black and gold brush in his hand. As the brush moved like dragons and snakes, waves of Taoist rhymes slowly unfolded. Longchen's eyes suddenly narrowed. In his eyes, this middle-aged man was obviously an ordinary person, but his brush had such Taoist rhyme. It was really unbelievable. The brush stopped. Stalks of spiritual herbs appeared in front of Longchen as if they were real and illusory. "As far as I know, you are also an alchemist. Although these spiritual herbs are formed by my brush, they still have some charm. They should be useful to you," the middle-aged man said to Longchen. Longchen looked at these spiritual herbs and looked deeply at the middle-aged man. He didn't refuse. When he saw Longchen accept these spirit medicines, the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth revealed a wisp of a smile, and he said indifferently, "Shu San, send young friend Longchen back." Shu San obeyed and carried Longchen on his back again. In the next moment, he disappeared in front of everyone, turning into a ray of light. This ray of light moved faster and faster, faster and faster, and gradually disappeared. Interesting, interesting. Staring at Longchen's disappearing figure, the middle-aged man muttered to himself, "I want to see if this person can fight against a sovereign who has transcended." Chapter 578. 2 favors. He followed Shu San out of the Imperial Academy of Sciences. Longchen could not help but understand a little more. In order to find the Imperial College, one did not need strength but speed. He had the same speed as everyone in the Imperial Academy of Sciences. The surroundings gradually became clear. When Longchen regained his senses, he was already in the ancient desolate land. Shu San had almost no cultivation, but his speed allowed him to easily return to the Imperial Academy of Sciences. He could also travel freely between the 10 Heavens domain and the ancient desolate land. Shu San glanced at Longchen and revealed a wisp of a smile. "All right, I've obtained quite a bit of benefits because of you this time." "Thank you." "Likewise," Longchen replied. He had also gained a lot from the Imperial Academy of Sciences. At least, it was very difficult for him to recover from his injuries in such a short time. Shu San waved at Longchen, then turned and disappeared into the sky. Returning to the ancient desolate land, Longchen did not know why, but he felt as if it was a lifetime ago. Longchen rose into the sky. With a move of his hands, he tore through space with his virtual immortal cultivation and headed toward the Northern Region Divine Mountain's secret realm. Northern Region Divine Mountain. The 5 secret realms of the ancient desolate land were bustling with noise and excitement. Since the end of the Battle of Infinite Wasteland, the younger generation of various clans and even the older generation of experts used this place as a holy land for cultivation. The family in charge of this place was the Long family. In front of the Divine Mountain, the vast mountain range was packed with people. Countless experts came and went in an endless stream. In the mountains, a statue stood tall in the sky. The statue was lifelike and elegant. It held a sheathed sword in its hand, and its eyes were filled with disdain. The sky above him suddenly tore open, and a young man slowly walked out. This scene immediately attracted the attention of people from all directions. Some people even glared at him angrily. In just a few breaths, dozens of saints flew up and shouted, "Who dares to tear open space here?" However, the moment they saw Longchen, their faces froze. Then, They all knelt on one knee in the air, their faces filled with reverence. Countless people on the ground looked at each other before someone finally recognized Long Chen. Long Chen, he is Long Chen, the man who set the desolation with 3 swords. The benefactor of the primordial era has returned. Long Chen of the Long family. The legend of the ancient desolate land is back. Countless shouts and excited noises spread out like rolling thunder. Swoosh! Swoosh! After the voice spread out, beams of light shot out from the sky above the divine mountain. Greetings, my lord. Master. Young master. Familiar figures appeared in front of Long Chen, causing Long Chen's heart to be filled with boundless warmth. The 3 mythical beast fighting souls, Jian San, Qing Xian, and so on, all of them held a high position in his heart. Long Chen waved his hand, gesturing for the 3 mythical beast fighting souls and Jian San to dispense with the formalities. His eyes fell on the divine mountain below. A middle-aged man with white hair walked out quickly. He kept looking around and finally looked at Long Chen. Long Chen's heart softened, and he felt tears welling up in his eyes. He turned into a stream of light and rushed down. He knelt in front of the man and said, "Father." Long Tianqing strode forward and hurriedly greeted him. He lifted Long Chen up with both hands and then grabbed his hands. They looked at each other and were speechless for a moment. After a long while, Long Tianqing said, "Now that you're back, are you still going to leave?" Long Chen's heart ached, but he still nodded. Long Tianqing didn't want to let go of Long Chen's hands and walked into the mountain. The 2 drank in the room until the next morning. Long Chen walked out of the room. The 3 mythical beast fighting souls, Jian San, and Qing Xian were already waiting at the door. Long Chen knew that they couldn't wait to know what had happened in the Qingyun region. Especially the 3 mythical beast fighting souls. Although they were in the ancient desolation land, they definitely felt that Long Chen had awakened the 7th Dharma body of the heavenly dragon bloodline a few days ago. Long Chen waved his hand in motion for them to talk further away. He didn't want Long Tianqing to be worried after he knew. The 3 mythical beast fighting souls were shocked and angry when they heard that Long Chen had fought with a celestial stage expert because of the holy weapon. Jian San held the broken sword in his hand tightly and said in a deep voice, "Master, the next time you go to the Qingyun region, take me with you. The 3 of us are also willing to go to the Qingyun region with you. After you left, we didn't fall behind in our cultivation." When Long Chen heard this, a smile appeared on his face. He nodded slightly and did not reject them. The Battle of Tianhuang had caused the entire ancient desolation land to experience a catastrophe. There were countless casualties. At the same time, the entire ancient desolation land was reshuffled. Most importantly, the innate purple qi had entered. It would take at least 10 years for the innate purple qi to disappear completely. Now, many celestial stage experts had appeared in the ancient desolation land. There were also many sage stage experts. The 3 mythical beast fighting souls had also reached the celestial stage. Only Jian San and Qing Xian were still in the initial stage of the sage stage. The 2 of them were quite talented. It was already very heaven-defying for them to enter the sage stage at such a young age. They could be compared to many of the star children in the Qingyun region. Of course, their cultivation was inseparable from Long Chen's. "Since I've returned, the day I go to the Qingyun region will be the day I find my mother and kill the ruler of the Nether Ghost." Long Chen's voice was filled with killing intent. "I'll hold a banquet tomorrow. I'll invite all the sage stage experts of the ancient desolation clan to the godly mountain." The 3 mythical beast fighting souls immediately agreed. Without hesitation, they soared into the sky and went to prepare the banquet. 13. Go to the Alchemist Guild and ask their president to come and see me, Long Chen said. After Jian San left, Qing Xian walked to Long Chen's side and leaned on his shoulder. She said softly, "Young master, don't you want to go and see Sister Yi Hailan? Do you want me to go and see her?" Long Chen stroked Qing Xian's hair with his right hand and felt the familiar scent at the tip of his nose. Qing Xian bit her lower lip. She leaned on Long Chen's shoulder and fell into his arms. Qing Xian's voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. She said, "If she doesn't come to see you, young master, you should go and see her. Since you left, she hasn't left the Godly Mountain's secret territory." Longchen was silent. Qing Xian was his fiancée and the person who had accompanied him since he was young. But when he heard that Yi Hailan hadn't stepped out of the secret territory since he left, he couldn't help but feel his heart clench. He understood the loneliness of the Godly Mountain's secret territory's last layer. But he also knew Yi Hailan's pride. The next day, Longchen went deep into the Godly Mountain. The secret territory's secret territory was like looking at flowers on horseback for him. When he stepped into the last layer and saw the endless darkness of the Godly Mountain, his heart clenched. It was as if a big stone had fallen on his heart. In the endless void, Yi Hailan kept walking forward and never looked back. This was the scene when he let Yi Hailan enter this place for the first time. Chapter 579. Dead of Love. The last level of the northern region Divine Mountain was an endless void. Time passed extremely slowly here. Half a month in this place was equivalent to 10 years. Longchen did not know how long Yi Hailan had been walking. Yi Hailan stopped in his tracks but did not turn back. Longchen stepped into the void, and the immortal power under his feet spread out like ripples. After a few steps, he arrived beside Yi Hailan. Buzz! However, just as he arrived, Yi Hailan's sword transformed into a graceful sword and slashed toward his head. Longchen frowned slightly. He formed a sword with his right hand and used his immortal power to break Yi Hailan's sword attack. However, when he looked into Yi Hailan's eyes, his gaze froze. She was trying to break through to the essence immortal realm. Yi Hailan had the 7 ultimate bodies. Cultivating here was already very efficient. Furthermore, time passed very slowly. It was reasonable for her to have such an achievement. Longchen did not have time to think carefully. He was met with another sword attack. Yi Hailan's sword attack became faster and faster. There were more and more changes. Her saint power also became stronger. However, Longchen broke through all of them. Longchen frowned. Yi Hailan seemed to treat him as her inner demon. If he did not kill him, Yi Hailan might not be able to step into the essence immortal realm. Longchen's face was full of bitterness. However, his heart was filled with guilt. Yi Hailan had Yi Hailan's arrogance. Perhaps this former holy lady of the 5 sects would never be willing to fight for a man with someone else. She was even more unwilling to share a husband with another woman. Longchen did not dodge when he saw the countless sword shadows descending again. If he did not kill his inner demon, not only would Yi Hailan not be able to break through, but his 7 ultimate bodies might also be awakened. Of course, Longchen was not seeking death. Since Yi Hailan had treated him as an illusion, then he would take a blow from his sword. With his current level of cultivation, as long as his physical body was completely destroyed, he could easily recover. He would use this void to deceive Yi Hailan once. Poochie. However, the long sword did not fall, but the countless sword shadows were shattered. Yi Hailan's eyes suddenly became clear and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Longchen's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly supported her. It's been 3 years. Why can't I do it every time? Yi Hailan's beautiful face revealed a hint of desolation. Her fair fingertips slowly caressed Longchen's cheek, and then she leaned into Longchen's arms like a Qing Xian. Longchen had never seen such a gentle expression on her face. Longchen did not speak, and he did not know what to say. In his previous life, because of Qing Xian's death and the destruction of his family, he rejected Yi Hailan's kindness, which caused her 7 ultimate bodies to break out, and she died of depression. In this life, he saved Qing Xian, saved his family, and also saved Yi Hailan, his confidant. But when it came to love, it was far more difficult than cultivation. It could never be explained clearly, it could never be understood. Gradually, Yi Hailan fell asleep in his arms. Perhaps Yi Hailan was only like this because she saw Longchen as an illusion. A day in the outside world was a few months in here. Longchen was not in a hurry, and he just let Yi Hailan sleep in his arms. Longchen looked at Yi Hailan's almost perfect face, and his palm gradually fell on her face, feeling her body temperature. It was undeniable that he already had feelings for Yi Hailan. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, Yi Hailan's temperament was similar to his in terms of swordsmanship. Even their personalities were almost the same. Yi Hailan also understood Longchen very well. He was a confidant in his previous life, and a confidant in this life. Longchen did not move, but his heart was filled with mixed feelings, and he gradually closed his eyes. There was nothing around him, and he did not know how much time had passed. As Longchen was about to fall asleep, he suddenly felt something soft in his arms, and a fragrance hit him in the face. He did not know when a pair of warm red lips covered his. Before his eyes, Yi Hailan's eyes had unknowingly turned hollow again. But even so, her cold and beautiful face that was like a celestial fairy still caused Longchen's face to heat up. However, Longchen soon realized that her aura was increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Longchen watched as Yi Hailan entered the virtual immortal realm with a kiss, and he only felt that the softest part of his heart was touched. She did not treat Longchen as an inner demon to get rid of, but she treated him as an obsession in her heart. Longchen had become her Tao. Longchen hugged Yi Hailan tightly in his arms, and then kissed him deeply again. After a long time, their lips parted. Yi Hailan's face was burning red, and his eyelids twitched. His beautiful eyes blinked, but it seemed to add some color to the void. If you aren't an illusion in my heart, so what if I have to sleep in this lonely place forever? Yi Hailan stared at Longchen. She was still in his embrace as she muttered to herself. Longchen did not speak, and he did not know what to say. Yi Hailan held his hand and led him to walk in the void. There was no sky, no earth, no color, no sun, and no moon. You and I met in the land of the 5 sects in the fire seed mystic realm. That day, you found a way to suppress the 7 ultimate bodies for me, and for some reason, you promised me that you would never let me awaken the 7 ultimate bodies. It was also that day that you devoured an entire fire elemental spiritual meridian. Then, you became the saint of the 5 sects, and when everyone wanted me to marry into the Leaf family of the North region, you stood up. Then, you brought us to the ancient barren land, and I no longer had to bear this unwarranted mission. That day, Yi Hailan seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be talking to Longchen. Perhaps in her eyes, Longchen was just an illusion in her heart. She wanted to say all the words she wanted to say in this lifetime. At this moment, this place did not seem to be the void, but the fire seed mystic realm, the ancient barren land, and the place where she spoke. Longchen's heart trembled. Just like that, an unknown amount of time passed, perhaps 1 or 2 months. When Longchen and Yi Hailan fell asleep, Longchen disappeared into the void. He did not know how to face Yi Hailan. Perhaps this debt of love could only be resolved when he killed the transcendent sovereign and everything returned to peace. He left the void. Only half a day had passed in the outside world, and to Longchen's surprise, many ancient clan members had already arrived. These ancient clan members came from various regions of the ancient barren land, and their cultivation bases were at least in the Saint Realm. The Saint Realm was the transcendent realm. Only those who could enter this realm had unlimited possibilities. At the foot of the North Region Divine Mountain, there was already a sea of people from the foot of the mountain. These people were all here because of Longchen. Longchen stood on the peak of the mountain and coincidentally saw Jian Shusan return. Behind him were the Alchemist Guild's president and a few Alchemist Guild elders, and Yen Li and Lu Yi were among them. However, at this moment, the Alchemist Guild president was not an old man. Instead, he was a tall, graceful, and seductive woman in a fiery red qipao. Yunmei saw Longchen from afar, and Longchen went up to her. In fact, he had contacted the Alchemist Guild for Yunmei. Now that Yunmei was here, it saved him a lot of trouble. Chapter 580. Divine Essence Pill. While Yunmei was teasing Longchen, Lu Yi rushed out from behind her and hugged Longchen's arm intimately. Yunli also walked out slowly, looking at Longchen deeply. Longchen turned to Yunmei and said, "Please come in." However, Yunmei took a step forward and got closer to Longchen. Her fiery red cheongsam was barely wrapped around her perky breasts, making one's breath quicken. She stared at Longchen and said with a smile, "Since you want to talk, why go inside? You and I can talk in private." Longchen shook his head and smiled bitterly. Facing such a charming and eccentric woman, he was quite helpless. However, he knows that Yunmei is a smart person, a smart businesswoman. Longchen comforted Louis, motioned everyone to wait here first, and then walked with Yunmei to the back of the mountain. Seeing that there was no one around, Yunmei stared at Longchen and said, "I really didn't misjudge you. How long has it been since we last met? You've already caused an uproar in the 10th heaven. Even a heavenly ruler has appeared." Yunmei has heard a lot about what happened in the 10th heaven. It's just that Longchen didn't intend to answer. Instead, he said casually, "Yun family, businesswoman. Your family is the ruler of the Yun nation in the 5th heaven, right?" Snap. As soon as Longchen's voice fell, Yunmei's footsteps suddenly stopped, and a dead tree under her feet broke, making a crisp sound. The corners of Longchen's mouth curled into a smile when he saw this. He knew that he guessed right. The Yun nation is a country in the 5th heaven. It also has a heavenly ruler, but it's not because of its prosperity. On the contrary, in terms of national strength, the Yun nation and the firmament divine country founded by Longchen in his previous life are like heaven and earth. However, in terms of wealth, no divine nation in the entire 10 directions heavenly domain could surpass the Yun nation. It was rumored that the Cloud Nation controlled almost 30% of the wealth of the entire 10 directions celestial domain. When they met for the first time, Longchen did not react. However, after the Battle of Heaven Wasteland began, Yunmei left the ancient antiquity for the Sky Domain and gave up the Alchemist Guild. He had a plan in his heart. But now, after seeing Yunmei's reaction, he was certain. Longchen continued, "Originally I wanted to obtain the support of the Alchemist Guild, but now I want to make a deal with you." Yunmei was unusually serious. She stared at Longchen with sharp eyes. After a moment of silence, she said, "What kind of deal do you want to make? I would like to know. You are a young man from the north of the northern region. How do you know about the heaven region? I want the starry sky immortal item." Longchen did not answer and just said to himself. Yunmei frowned and said in a deep voice, "I am a merchant, not a philanthropist. You have to understand that the reason why I am helping you is because of your talent in alchemy." Longchen could not help but take a deep look at Yunmei. He had to admit that although this woman's cultivation was not high, she had a unique charm. She was obviously young, but now she had the demeanor of a big family. "The deal I want to make with you is the art of alchemy. You look for the starry sky immortal item, and I will refine the pills." Longchen paused and said, "I want 50% of the pills, 50%? Yunmei could not help but cover her mouth and giggle. Her proud figure really made people dizzy. After a moment, she stopped laughing and stood on tiptoe. She put her arm on Longchen's shoulder and whispered in his ear, "My Yun family has never done such a loss-making deal. I think this deal is a failure." Longchen seemed to be prepared for this and whispered, "What if I can refine the divine origin pill?" Divine origin pill. Yunmei's body suddenly stiffened. When Longchen felt a soft touch on his arm, he subconsciously took 2 steps back. This action made Yunmei blush. She snorted and said, "Can you really refine the divine origin pill? Although I have heard of this pill, it is said that it has been completely lost 10,000 years ago." But when she finished speaking, her voice gradually lowered. This was because she had seen the pills that Longchen had refined. She had also seen the crack pills that Longchen had taught Louis to refine. That method was exactly the same as the pills that had been passed down from ancient times in various great mystic realms. If there was really someone who could refine the divine origin pill, then Longchen would definitely be the first one. Yunmei saw that Longchen did not seem to be joking at all. She still could not believe it and asked, can you really refine the divine origin pill? I will take 50% of the starry sky immortal items that you need to refine this pill. Longchen did not answer her, but there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Yunmei snorted softly, but she began to ponder. The divine origin pill was a first-grade sage-grade pill. Although this pill had been lost for a long time, there were many people in the alchemy world who knew about it. This was because this pill was also known as the immortal breakthrough pill. Regardless of whether it was the sage stage to the virtual immortal stage or below the 10th level of the virtual immortal stage, it had the effect of breaking through to the next realm. It could be said that it seized the fortune of heaven and earth. There was a time when this pill was also called the immortal medicine among the sage-grade pills. In fact, some time ago, a furnace of divine origin pills appeared in an auction in the 5th heaven, and it was finally sold at a price close to the 6th-grade sage-grade pill. In the 10 heavens, it was not that there were no alchemists who could refine sage-grade pills, but alchemists who could refine above the 6th-grade sage-grade were already very rare. Once a pill exceeds the 6th-grade sage-grade, its price would definitely make even the ruler powerhouses tremble in fear. The divine origin pill, a first-grade sage-grade pill, could be sold at the price of a 6th-grade sage-grade pill. Its preciousness could be seen at a glance. Of course, there was also the meaning of the rarer something is, the more precious it is. Buzz Yunmei turned her back, and an array flag appeared in her right hand. The array flag was densely engraved with purple gold glaze. At a glance, one could tell that the level of this item was definitely not low. With a wave of the array flag, an isolation array separated her from Longchen. Through the array, Longchen saw that she seemed to be contacting others through the array, so he waited with peace of mind. However, he was a little more curious about Yunmei's identity. The array flag in her hand was not an ordinary item. On the small space of the array flag, there were at least tens of thousands of arrays engraved on it, and their level was definitely not low. Although Yunmei was young, her status in the family was definitely not low. After a while, Yunmei waved the array flag in her hand, and the isolation array disappeared. She walked in front of Longchen and said, "If you want to make this deal, you have to answer 3 questions. First, how much confidence do you have in refining this pill? Second, how can I be sure that the pill recipe in your hand is the real divine origin pill? Third, you want this 5th-grade pill to deal with the ruler of the 10th heaven?" Chapter 581. Contract transaction. These 3 questions were extremely sharp, but in fact, for Longchen, the first 2 questions weren't a problem. He had an alchemy inheritance, and the efficacy of the Saint Yuan pill would only be stronger. As for the success rate, with the help of the 4 divine cauldrons and the help of several pill venerables of the Alchemist Guild, he had at least a 70% success rate. After all, Longchen had refined a Saint-grade pill last time, and he was confident that after 3 furnaces of pills, the success rate could reach at least 80%. Such a success rate was already extremely high. Longchen told Yunmei the answers to the first 2 questions. Although Yunmei was slightly surprised, she still nodded slightly. She was looking forward to Longchen's answer to the 3rd question. However, she was disappointed. Longchen didn't intend to answer the 3rd question. However, the answer was already clear. Longchen returned to the ancient desolate land and made such a big move, it must be to return to the 10 heavens. To become enemies with the Nether Ghost ruler. Now, who in the 10th heaven didn't know that the Nether Ghost ruler personally attacked a Yuan immortal young man? Although the 10th heaven is ranked last among the 10 heavens, and there is only one Nirvana realm powerhouse, the Nether Ghost ruler, but if you want to become his enemy, I'm afraid your end won't be very good. Yunmei said to Longchen in a deep voice. Longchen shook his head. Tell the higher-ups of your family my first 2 answers. You and I are only doing business. My enmity with the Nether Ghost ruler has nothing to do with your Yun family. Hearing this, Yunmei waved her hand again, set up an isolation formation, and reported this matter to the people of her family alone. However, this time, it took her a full quarter of an hour. However, Longchen wasn't in a hurry. Because he knew that this transaction would be successful. As long as one was a businessman, they wouldn't refuse such a lucrative transaction. A pill that was almost extinct, once mass-produced, as long as it was properly controlled, it would set off a wave in the 10 heavens, sure enough. While Longchen was calm and composed, Yunmei walked out. She looked at Longchen with an aggrieved expression and said to Longchen, "The people of my clan think that your price is too high. You only have the pill formula. Everyone in my clan can find it. Moreover, you have made an enemy of the 10th heaven's ruler, Nether Ghost. The person behind him is also very troublesome for the Cloud Nation." Yunmei had a helpless look on her face. She looked like a little girl. If Longchen was really just a young lad, perhaps he would have already been infatuated with her. However, no matter how glib her tongue was, Longchen just smiled and said, "If your people are willing, I will start refining in 10 days. Seeing Longchen's stubbornness, Yunmei glared fiercely at him and said bluntly, 70-30. My clan gets 70-30, and you get 30. After all, you only offer the pill recipe. 55. 64. Deal. Yunmei had prepared a lot of words to say, but she abruptly swallowed them back and stared at Longchen, giggling. A jade slip appeared in her right hand, on which the details of refining the divine origin pill were written word by word. Yunmei said to Longchen, "Once you sign this thing, even a ruler will suffer if you violate it, so you'd better think carefully." Longchen nodded. He could naturally see the spirit array engraved under the jade slip. This spirit array was quite widespread in the 10 directions heaven. It was somewhat similar to a blood oath, but it required one's blood essence to form a contract. Once violated, almost everyone below the ruler level would die an unnatural death. As for the reason, no one knew from beginning to end. This kind of contract was also called a blood curse contract and was very taboo for many people. Just as Longchen was about to drip his blood to form the contract, Yunmei's lily-white hand suddenly grabbed his hand. Her eyes were like autumn waves as she smiled charmingly and said, "If you compromise another 10%, this servant may be able to spend a few good nights with you, Ka." However, just as she finished speaking, Longchen's blood had already touched the jade slip, and his finger had also landed on it at the same time. Longchen stared at Yunmei and said, "Your charm technique won't work on me." After Longchen finished speaking, he seemed to have been prepared. He waved his right hand and left behind a jade slip. Then, he directly threw Yunmei to the ground and soared into the air, rushing towards the front of the mountain. Yunmei watched Longchen leave and couldn't help but laugh, but it was also a bit flirtatious. The spirit array flag in her hand moved again, and shadows appeared behind her. "Go and do it now. Buy all the starry sky immortal items required in the jade slip. Buy them in 9 batches, the price will be lower each time, and the quantity will be higher each time." Mrs. Wise. What if this person is really talking nonsense? Why don't we let him refine a stage first? There's no need. Go ahead and buy them. This person's alchemy cultivation is definitely not weaker than anyone else. He doesn't look like an idiot who would joke around with his life. Using this method, we can obtain the most things we need in a short period of time, and the price will also be the lowest. It had to be said that Yunmei was a woman who really knew how to do business. If he bought a large number of the same starry sky immortal items in one go, it would definitely cause many people to wait for the highest price. However, now that he had bought them in 9 batches, the price would be lower each time. If this happened again and again, it would definitely cause many people to sell them. Many starry sky immortal items would not only not increase in price, but also decrease in price. The highest price would be the first batch of starry sky immortal items. This was equivalent to directly controlling the price of the starry sky immortal items. By the time everyone reacted, they might have already obtained 70% of the items they needed. On the other side, at the foot of the sacred mountain, although the experts of various races had arrived early, Longchen didn't do anything. He just stood at the peak of the mountain with everyone and continued to wait. Until 3 days had passed. At this moment, there were countless Sage Realm experts at the foot of the sacred mountain, and many virtual immortal realm experts were also in the minority. Almost all the experts of the ancient desolate land, including the sage realm experts, had arrived. Many of the younger generation even looked at Longchen from afar, their eyes full of longing. 3 swords to settle Tianhuang. He had already become a legend in the hearts of many of the younger generation. Seeing that the experts of various races had arrived, Longchen took a deep breath and soared into the sky, standing tens of thousands of feet above the ground. I want the ancient desolate land. The experts above the sage realm are divided into 9 branches. 2 years later, I want to enter the 10th heaven and establish a divine nation. Longchen's voice faintly spread, falling into everyone's ears. Hua! As soon as Longchen's voice fell, the entire sacred mountain was in an uproar. Although everyone had blind worship for Longchen, they couldn't help but fall silent at this moment. In the 10th heaven, there were countless experts. The Battle of Tianhuang had caused countless casualties in the ancient desolate land. Millions of people had died unnatural deaths, but now Longchen wanted to start a war with the heaven realm. Entering the heaven realm, this was simply something that only a madman would say. Swoosh! Swoosh! Rays of light shot into the sky, each of them having a virtual immortal realm cultivation. Chapter 582. Differences among the various clans. These virtual immortal experts were originally from the various hidden clans. Since the opening of the heavenly domain passage, the Khanate purple chi had filled the ancient land, and they had all stepped into the virtual immortal realm. The Battle of Tianhuang had ended quickly because of Longchen. However, it had left an indelible fear in the various clans in the ancient land. One of the virtual immortal experts stared at Longchen and said, "Back then, you used 3 swords to end Tianhuang, and you're already a virtual immortal at such a young age. Naturally, your ambition is higher than the sky, and you can rule the heavenly domain." In the ancient land, the various clans treat the northern region Holy Mountain as a sacred place, and they have erected statues for you. Of course, we respect you, but we don't agree with you. Now, the most powerful expert in the ancient land is only the few of us who have stepped into the virtual immortal realm by chance. What is a virtual immortal in the heavenly domain? They knew that Longchen had left an influence in the ancient land after the Battle of Tianhuang, so they did not dare to show any disrespect in their words. However, the meaning behind their words was very clear. Many of the older generation fell silent. They were too enthusiastic about Longchen, but they had neglected Longchen's age. How could they challenge the 10 heavenly domain just because of their passion? If they had known that there were 9 lineage firmament divine guards in the firmament god nation in his previous life, they would not have said such words. The 9-color firmament divine guards were very famous, and every one of them was personally selected by Longchen from the 10 heavenly domain. Of course, he knew that these people could not be compared to the 9-color firmament divine guards in his previous life. However, if they had the divine essence elixir and 2 years of training, they would definitely be a powerful force when they attacked the heavenly domain. Longchen stared at the virtual immortals standing in the sky and said in a deep voice, "In the Battle of Tianhuang domain, the 10th heaven will initiate the battle every cycle. The innate purple chi will flow backward, allowing you to reach the virtual immortal realm. What about 10 years later? By then, the Khanate purple chi will have completely disappeared. A few hundred years later, you virtual immortals might not be dead, and you might be lucky enough to protect yourself. However, the Battle of Heavenly Desolate will start again. Your clansmen and countless people in the ancient desolate land will face a calamity again." Longchen's words silenced everyone. In terms of cultivation level, Longchen was only in the virtual immortal realm. However, everyone knew how talented he was. However, the reason why he was able to erect a divine statue in the ancient desolate land and achieve his current fame was because he had single-handedly ended the calamitous Battle of Heaven Wasteland. But in the next Battle of Heaven Wasteland domain, would there be anyone who could help them avoid this catastrophe? These ancient clans and hermit clans knew better than anyone else. They even knew the approximate time of each Battle of Heaven Wasteland. However, they knew that this matter could not be stopped because the ancient desolate land would never be able to fight against the heavenly region. In the 10 directions heavenly domain that was filled with innate purple chi, experts above the virtual immortal realm could be found everywhere. My clan is willing to follow you to take a look at the heaven domain. My Feng Jian clan wants to see if the swords in the hands of the people of the heaven domain are sharper by 30%. Jian Fantian of the Feng Jian clan rushed out from the crowd. Behind him were clansmen with swords on their backs. Each of them had a cultivation level of sage or virtual immortal. And my clan. Although we are not an ancient clan, we are lucky to have a few sage disciples. I'm afraid that before the next battle of heaven wasteland domain starts, all of us will be dead. We might as well fight it out with you. The crowd was not surprised that the Feng Jian clan would follow Long Chen. After all, the Feng Jian clan had been supporting Long Chen ever since he had appeared. However, this unknown ancient race tribesman had attracted the attention of everyone present. Then, there was another period of silence. Just as this person had said, the Purple Rhombus Beast clan was an unknown 3-star ancient clan located in the southern region of the ancient desolate land. However, this clan had a large population. Although they were only a 3-star ancient clan, they occupied close to 30% of the mountains surrounding the southern region's mystic realm. However, at this moment, there were only 5 middle-aged sages in the crowd's eyes. This was because everyone knew that the so-called Purple Rhombus Beast clan was no more. The 1 million clansmen of this clan had all been captured and sent to the southern region's mystic realm by the people of Heaven Domain. There were less than 1,000 Purple Rhombus Beasts left now. Our clan is a 3-star ancient clan. You are right. When the next battle of Heaven Wasteland Domain comes, we will be destroyed in body and soul. We might as well fight back and bite them hard. And my clan as well. In this battle of Heaven Wasteland Domain, our Taoist and the younger generation of our clan were all killed. We must pay with our blood. Voices of agreement rang out one after another. Long Chen nodded slightly. However, Jian Shan and the 3 divine beast war souls could not help but frown. This was because many of the ancient clans and hidden clans had retreated. These people were the core strength of the entire ancient desolate land. At some point, Yun Meier was standing not far from Long Chen. Looking at the people below, some of them were agitated, some shook their heads and sighed, but most of them turned around and left. She said to Long Chen, "There is no way to fight against Heaven Domain with these people. Why are you asking for trouble? The ruler of the Nether Ghost is not someone these motley crew can kill. Fighting with these people is tantamount to hitting a stone with an egg." Long Chen smiled but did not say anything. He directly reached out and stopped the 3 divine beast war souls who were about to intercept the ancient clans. He said lightly, "Within 3 months, they will naturally return. Only by letting the people of the ancient desolate land enter the 10th heaven can we completely end the battle of Heaven Wasteland." As his voice fell, Long Chen's gaze slowly fell on Yun Meier. He continued, "I never said that I would rely on these people to kill the ruler of the Nether Ghost. You just have to deliver the item we agreed on. In 2 years, we will wait and see." Yun Meier took a deep look at Long Chen, then turned around and left with the people of the Alchemist Guild. Yen Li and Lui Yi chose to stay by Long Chen's side. The ancient clans of the ancient desolate land came with great confidence and momentum, but now, less than 30% of them stayed. However, Long Chen didn't seem to be worried at all. He just said to the 3 divine beast war souls, Jian Shan, and the others, "Divide them into 7 branches according to their cultivation and name them Rainbow. In 3 days, prepare to enter the northern divine mountain." On the other side, after the clans left, they shook their heads and felt that Long Chen's actions today were simply child's play. After leaving the northern divine mountain, many ancient clans and reclusive clans began to contact each other. In just a few hours, many high-level clans gathered on a mountain at the border between the northern divine mountain and the desolate realm. This person returned from Heaven Domain, but he wants to incite the clans to fight against Heaven Domain. I'm afraid he has some enmity with Heaven Domain. After all, Long Chen is just a young brat. He's hot-blooded. If we let him continue to cause trouble and the heavenly domain passage opens again, it will be another catastrophe. Chapter 583. The quality was too poor. The sun rose and set. After Longchen returned to the ancient desolate land, the peace after the Battle of Heaven wasteland was completely broken. Less than 20% of the Sage Realm and Virtual Immortal Realm cultivators chose to follow Longchen. Not only that, most of these people were 2-star or 3-star ancient clans. Many reclusive clans and 1-star ancient clans did not participate. Of course, nearly 50% of them chose to wait and see. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the 10th heaven, inside the heavenly palace. In the courtyard of bones. Ubaigu looked at the jade slip in his hand with a playful expression. He whispered, "Want to enter the heavenly domain? Ridiculous. Xianzhenzi, go and see if you can open the passage to the ancient desolate land again." As Ubaigu's voice fell, an old beggar covered in tattered talismans walked out from the depths of the courtyard of bones. The old beggar looked at Ubaigu with a face full of awe. Streams of immortal chi circulated in his hands. This person was not only a talisman master but also a heavenly immortal realm expert. A moment later, the 5 talismans in his hand shattered and turned into ashes in the air. The old beggar bowed and said in a deep voice, "Last time, when the Bright Moon Ancient Clan entered the ancient desolate land, the Lord helped the various clans open the passage to the heavenly domain and started the Battle of Heaven wasteland in advance. A large amount of connate purple chi poured in, like a river flowing into a lake, causing a strong spatial storm to spread between the heavenly domain and the ancient desolate land. It's impossible to open the passage to the heavenly domain again, but if 1 or 2 heavenly immortal realm experts go through it." Ubaigu frowned when he heard the old beggar's words. He snorted and said, "Then won't we have to wait for hundreds of years to open the passage to the heavenly domain? I wonder how Longchen went back." The old beggar shook his head and replied, "The person who saved this person that day should be someone from the imperial palace. Although the people of this clan have no cultivation, their speed is enough for them to travel through the various large domains. If the spatial storm calms down after 10 years, it's not impossible to open the passage to the heavenly domain on a small scale." Ubaigu waved his hand. Then, he said, "Baigu, I'll wait and see what kind of storm a heavenly immortal realm expert." On the other side, in the ancient desolate land, the secret realm of the divine mountain of the northern region was opened once again. It could be said that this secret realm was the most well-preserved of the 5. It was also the only secret realm that had not been invaded by the various races of the Qingyun realm, especially the last secret realm, the Void Land. Longchen had deliberately changed the flow of time there. Yi Hailan also walked out of the secret realm the next day, but he did not say anything about what had happened a few days ago. Perhaps in her heart, the events of those few days were merely an illusion of her inner demons. She didn't go to Longchen, and Longchen didn't go to see her either. On the 3rd day, when the sun was about to set, Yunmeier brought more than 10 alchemy venerables to the sacred mountain. Yunmeier motioned for Longchen to follow her into the remote mountain range behind the sacred mountain. Qing Xian, Jianshi San, and the others wanted to follow, but Yunmeier stopped them. When the 2 of them entered the heart of the mountain range, Yunmeier moved her right hand, and 7 or 8 starry sky immortal items appeared, along with nearly 100 supplementary materials. Yunmeier threw the starry sky immortal item in front of Longchen, and said with unprecedented seriousness, "This is one of the starry sky immoral items that you proposed. You have 3 chances to refine it. If you don't succeed even once, you know the consequences." Longchen nodded slightly. He knew that Yunmeier was talking about the matter, not the person. 3 chances to refine it was enough to see the Yun clan's sincerity. Even if there was only a 30% chance of success, they would continue to fulfill the agreement with Longchen. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to Longchen violating the agreement. Clap, clap, clap. Seeing Longchen nod, Yunmeier gently patted the air with her lily-white hands, and the dozen or so pill venerables in the distance came closer. The 10 of you, listen to Long Chen's orders. If there's a trace of disobedience that causes problems with the pill, you don't need to live in this world anymore. Yun Meier's voice was very cold. However, this also allowed Long Chen to see the Yun clan's desire for the divine origin pill through Yun Meier. The dozen or so pill venerables took a deep breath, walked to Long Chen's side, and bowed deeply to him. After Long Chen returned the bow, he directly took out 4 huge cauldrons. They were the 4 great divine cauldrons. Just as the 4 great divine cauldrons were taken out, Yun Meier's delicate body suddenly froze, and her eyes widened. She cried out involuntarily, These are the legendary 4 great divine cauldrons, the 4 great divine cauldrons that only the pill Tao ghost left in this world. Long Chen smiled indifferently, as if he had already expected that Yun Meier would have such a reaction. His right hand moved in the air, sealing the surrounding 1,000 meters with an isolation array, and then the 4 great divine cauldrons spiraled into the air. The vermilion bird let out a long cry, the firepower was monstrous, and the black tortoise prostrated on the ground. At this moment, Yun Meier no longer had any doubts about Long Chen in her heart. With Long Chen's pill Dao cultivation, if he still couldn't refine the divine origin pill with these 4 great divine cauldrons, then he should just kill himself. While the 10 pill venerables were respectful to Long Chen, Yun Meier saw these cauldrons for the first time, but it wasn't their first time. As early as in the Battle of Heaven Wasteland, they had seen Long Chen refine a saint-grade pill. In the pill Dao, the one who reached the top was the teacher. Although they had come under orders, they still had some respect for Long Chen in their hearts, and even treated this pill refining as a form of cultivation. On one hand, Long Chen threw 7 or 8 kinds of immoral items into the various cauldrons, and on the other hand, only the 10 pill venerables vigorously assisted him. This scene caused Yun Meier, who was in the outside world, to be stunned. She just stared at Long Chen. 7 kinds of immoral items might not be a lot, but there were hundreds of auxiliary materials. The slightest mistake would result in failure. Although there were few immoral items in the starry sky, in fact, the difficulty of refining them was much higher than that of refining spirit herbs. In the midst of pill refining, everyone forgot about the passage of time. Accompanied by a roar, rays of splendor rushed out of the white tiger longevity cauldron like a reverse waterfall, and then slowly flowed. Pills hovered in the air, undulating, and there was a dark purple ripple in the surroundings. Dark purple Saint Grade. This was a Saint Grade material. Yun Meier suddenly stood up from a stone platform, her eyes full of shock. The 10 pill venerables were panting like oxen, and their faces were red. They never thought that they would refine a saint-grade pill through their hands. Chapter 584. Divine Origin Pill. A saint-level alchemist, no matter where he was, would be well received by various forces. It had been a long time since a saint-level alchemist had appeared in the ancient desolate land. Crack, crack. However, before everyone's shock disappeared, they saw that the first batch of pills had already been crushed by Long Chen, turning into powder. What are you doing? Long Chen's action immediately caused Yun Meier to shout. This was a saint-level pill, a divine origin pill. Even the dozen or so alchemy venerables beside Long Chen looked pained, and the corners of their eyes twitched. However, the dozen or so people did not dare to shout at Long Chen like Yun Meier. Today's pill refinement was simply a huge opportunity for them. They were all god-level alchemists, and to be able to refine a saint-level pill at such a close distance, they did not even dare to think about it in the past. Long Chen did not even look at Yun Meier, and said indifferently, although this pill is also a divine origin pill, it has not reached my requirements. Although the grade is there, the medicinal properties are too low. As soon as he finished speaking, Long Chen directly waved his hand, and the 4 divine cauldrons emitted flames of various colors, burning the first batch of pills that they refined. This action made Yun Meier stomp her feet in anger. Divine origin pills. If this batch of divine origin pills were to be sold at an auction, it would be enough to make a divine kingdom's aristocrat bleed. Stinking brat, if you can't refine a better pill, this batch will be deducted from your 40%. Yun Meier shouted. On the other side, Long Chen and the other alchemy venerables had already begun their second refinement. This time, Long Chen was even more serious. The 4 cauldrons were like a gust of wind that constantly circled above their heads. The 4 colored flames coiled and intertwined, but there was not a trace of rejection. Rays of pill light soared into the sky. Even with the isolation array, there was still a refreshing pill fragrance that gradually spread out from the back mountain. This time, the time Long Chen and the others spent refining pills was greatly reduced. They stopped after just 1 day. Unveil and the 10 pill venerables stared fixedly at the white tiger longevity cauldron. Long Chen couldn't help but laugh as he looked at their eager expressions. This time, the vermilion bird fire cloud cauldron produced a pill. In some ways, this pill has the meaning of breaking through. Those who break through the next realm are also violent and fiery. In the path of alchemy, everything should be returned to nature. The alchemy venerables were all extremely shocked when they heard this. Long Chen's words were simple yet profound, allowing them to be enlightened. They could not believe that a young man would say such a thing. As Long Chen spoke, he gently patted the vermilion bird fire cloud cauldron. Suddenly, the vermilion bird's tongue of flame transformed into a meteor and soared into the sky. The cauldron's strange shape actually emitted a vermilion bird's low cry the moment the pill came out. The pills were already arranged in the air, and the dark purple light in the surroundings was as beautiful as amber. Clap, clap, clap. The moment the pills came out, Unveil unknowingly held the glazed array flag in her hand. She directly broke the array set up by Long Chen and rushed to the front of the cauldron. A total of 32 pills. Every single one of them had 3 lines of cracks on them. It was not the first time they had seen these cracks. Unveil and the pill venerables present all knew what this meant. Seeing their dazed expressions, Long Chen explained, "Wait until we have a better understanding of each other, or after a few more days, when my alchemy cultivation has improved a little, for cracks should appear. It's a pity that we still lack a divine cauldron. Otherwise, this pill can at least have 7 cracks." Seeing that Long Chen still had a regretful expression, Unveil was afraid that he would destroy these pills on a whim. She hurriedly waved her right hand and put away all the pills. "I'll bring these pills back for inspection. These are all the materials my clan has gathered these days. They will continue to be sent over in an endless stream." Unveil's face seemed to be flushed with excitement as she spoke. After she finished speaking, Unveil took a deep look at Long Chen, turned around, and left directly. Long Chen took the storage ring left by Unveil. There were enough starry sky immoral items for him to refine 30 cauldrons of pills. In just 3 days, they had found so many starry sky immoral items of the same type. Long Chen could not help but be a little more curious about the Yun clan of the Yun nation. This clan seemed to have a way to connect the ancient desolate land and the heavenly domain. However, at this time, Long Chen's mind was not on this. He did not have the chance to rest at all and began to refine pills again. Since Unveil left, Long Chen would refine a cauldron of pills every day. After 7 days, his speed had increased a little. On the other hand, as he said, there was one more crack on the divine origin pill. During this time, what made Long Chen very happy was that Unveil did not interfere with his pill refining at all except for sending the spiritual herbs. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In these 3 months, the entire northern region Divine Mountain had undergone earth-shaking changes. In these 3 months, Long Chen had not stopped refining pills for a single day. Jian Shan and the 3 divine beast battle souls would come to see Long Chen every day, but they had never seen Long Chen so crazy. They knew that Long Chen was in a race against time. Long Chen said that there was only 1 year and 8 months left of the 2-year period. Everyone also learned more from Unveil. If they guessed correctly, the day Long Chen returned would be the day when the 10 heavenly domains competed for the position of the blazing sun. Boom, boom, boom. As the last cauldron of pills was refined, Long Chen could not help but retreat dozens of steps and lie on a huge rock. The 10 alchemy venerables beside him were even worse. they fell to the ground and fainted the moment he stopped. 2 or 3 of them even spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that their internal injuries were not light. Longchen gasped for breath. At this moment, his alchemy cultivation was enough to refine any divine-grade pill. With the help of the divine cauldron, he was confident that he could refine a saint-grade pill alone. These days, he could completely refine the divine origin pill by himself. It was just that these 10 alchemy venerables were willing to stay. Longchen lay on the huge rock. Yun Meier was already standing beside him at some point. She bent over and stared at him. Longchen subconsciously turned his body sideways. Suddenly, a large expanse of snow-white panorama entered his eyes. Today, Yun Meier was not wearing a cheongsam. Yun Meier's face suddenly turned red. However, she immediately teased Longchen, "Do you still want to see? If you give this purple crystal card to me, I'll show you." Longchen looked at Yun Meier and smiled bitterly, but he didn't reach out to take the purple crystal card. Looking at Yun Meier wearing a light gauze dress, Longchen slowly sat up and said, "If it's only worth this purple crystal card, I'm afraid your Yun family can even buy the entire 5th heaven. Since you can go back and forth between the 5th heaven and the ancient desolate land at will, then help me buy more talismans, and the quality as high as possible." Chapter 585. He is the sword. Yun Meier rolled her eyes at Longchen, then threw the purple crystal card into Longchen's hand. Immediately afterwards, she said, "There is still a batch of pills that haven't been dealt with yet. If you want these things, I will bring them to you. The cost will be deducted from your remaining share, plus a 1% commission." Longchen nodded, then put away the purple crystal card. In the center of the card is a big purple sun. This kind of card is related to a mysterious force called the Purple Sun Bank, which is spread all over the 10 directions heaven. With this card engraved with special patterns, it can be exchanged for any grade of spirit stone anywhere. In fact, in places outside the 10th heaven, this kind of crystal card has become the most direct method of payment. Yun Meier handed the purple crystal card to Longchen, then prepared to leave again. Obviously, in the past 3 months, the business of Xingyuan pills has made her very busy. Before leaving, Yun Meier looked back at Longchen and said, "You should think about it carefully. If you really want to be enemies with the Ghost Ruler, even with your current strength, you can't compete with the Heavenly Palace. In fact, as long as you are willing to give up, I can find a way to take you to the 5th heaven." Her words were sincere, but when she saw Longchen shake his head and refuse, she didn't say anything else. As soon as Yun Meier left, Jian San and the 3 divine beast war souls walked towards Longchen. In the past 3 months, the 4 of them came here to visit Longchen every day. Seeing that Longchen finally stopped refining pills, the 4 of them relaxed a lot. Longchen looked at them and asked Jian San directly, "In the past 3 months, how many people have stepped into the origin immortal realm?" Jian San replied without hesitation. 90 people stepped into the origin immortal realm, using a total of 120 Xingyuan pills. Longchen nodded slightly. In just 3 months, more than 90 origin immortals were created. Not to mention the ancient desolate land, even in the heavenly realm, this was enough to cause a commotion. Of course, the premise is that the Xingyuan pills haven't been circulated in the heavenly realm. Only the heavens knew what kind of uproar it would cause if an extinct pill reappeared in the heaven realm. Jian San looked at Longchen and said, "Now, almost 60% of the people in the ancient desolation land, including the Saint Realm experts, have come here. They have all made a blood oath to enter the heavenly domain. My lord, the 3 of us have received news that the reason why the Dracophant clan and many other hidden clans have yet to come is because they are sending messages to the Qingyun realm." The 3 divine beast battle souls' voices were filled with cold killing intent. In the past 3 months, their cultivation stages had increased rapidly. Their strength was comparable to the Earth's celestial stage. The 9 mythical beast fighting souls were closely related to Longchen. After Longchen awakened Firmament's 7th Dharma body, their powers started to awaken rapidly. In that case, the three of you will accompany me on this trip, Long Chen said coolly. Originally, he thought that as long as everyone saw the opportunity to step into the virtual immortal realm, they would choose to resist after the Battle of Heaven Wasteland. However, it seemed that the Qingyun realm's deterrence had been deeply rooted in their bones. On this day, Long Chen and the three divine beast battle souls left the North Region Holy Mountain and headed to the Waste Region to look for the various hidden clans. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. When Long Chen and the other three returned, the entire Waste Region seemed to have calmed down. On the second day after they returned to the Holy Mountain, the various hidden clans came to be their vassals. No one knew what had happened in the past 10 days. However, the hidden clans became more respectful towards Long Chen. From that day onwards, the entire ancient desolation land was no longer a sheet of loose sand. Instead, it became a solid piece of metal with the North Region Holy Mountain as the center. Under Long Chen's guidance, the entire ancient desolation land was divided into 7 branches: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. These people cultivated every day and had an endless supply of elixirs. Many of the saints started to step into the virtual immortal realm. The cultivation of the virtual immortal realm also increased rapidly. When everything was on the right track, Long Chen used half a year to set up a formation. The people from the 7 branches had to walk out of the formation once every 10 days. Those who could walk out would enter the 8th branch. The 8th branch was black, and the 9th branch was white. According to Long Chen, he only needed to find 2,000 people to enter the black and white branches. In the next half a year, Long Chen handed over everything to Dongfang Jin, Qin Xian, and the others. He then went into seclusion. 7 months after Long Chen went into seclusion, Jian Shisan stepped into the virtual immortal realm with the help of the divine origin pill. On this day, Long Chen deliberately came out of seclusion. However, when he saw Jian Shisan, he was stunned. Jian Shisan was no longer in front of him. There was only a short sword. Blood vessels appeared on the broken sword, and immortal power circulated. When Long Chen appeared, a human voice came from the broken sword. Jian Shisan's figure gradually solidified like liquid. "Master, I've found my own sword Dao." Long Chen looked at Jian Shisan. His heart had never been so excited, and he had never been so excited. Jian Shisan had transformed his body into a sword Dao and stepped into the virtual immortal realm. Long Chen looked at Jian Shisan in a daze. For the first time, he felt some respect for his disciple. He had given up everything for the sword. "Come with me to the sword pool of the sword worship clan." Long Chen brought Jian Shisan to the sword pool. The land of the sword worship clan had long been abandoned. It was occupied by countless ordinary residents who built cities. This scene had already spread throughout the entire ancient desolate land, except for the North Region. All the experts gathered at the North Region's divine mountain. Many ancient clans had given up their land and chosen to take root in the North Region. Now, except for the North Region, where experts were as common as clouds, it was difficult to find even a single human emperor in the other 4 regions. When Long Chen and Jian Shisan appeared in the sky above the city, everyone in the city looked up. When they saw Long Chen, they all prostrated themselves on the ground as if they were worshipping him. Long Chen's statue still stood in the North Region, but his name and appearance had spread throughout the ancient desolate land. Long Chen and Jian Shisan turned into light rainbows and swept into the original location of the sword pool. There was no one inside. It was still a long passageway in rich metal origin, but there was a sense of loneliness. At the end of the passageway was the door formed by the ripples. The 2 of them approached. There were still 3 words written on it. "What is the sword?" Buzz. A clanging sound was heard. An unsheathed sword was suspended in front of Long Chen. However, countless black gas surrounded it, as if it was completely sealed. The sword swayed a few times and rushed straight into the sword pool, as if it was an arrow that wanted to return home. Long Chen nodded slightly and said to Jian Shisan, "There is a great opportunity here. Whether or not you can obtain it depends on your luck." Jian Shisan bowed deeply to Long Chen. Immortal power surged all over his body and turned into a broken sword that rushed toward the rippling door. Sure enough, Jianshir-san also entered the sword pool this time. What is the sword? Chapter 586. Entering the realm of heaven again after a year and a half, Longchen returned to the sword pond once again. He stood at the edge of the rippling door and looked inside. His gaze never left the top. He knew that there was a pond up there. But even he didn't know what space was above the pond. Perhaps it didn't belong to the human realm that the sword spirit spoke of? Longchen sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave. He felt the aura of this place and once again fell into cultivation. At this moment, his cultivation had reached the initial stage of the Earth celestial stage. The divine origin pill's medicinal power was like charcoal and snowy weather to him. It was much more useful than others. But even so, the progress of his cultivation had come to a halt. Because the divine origin pill was only effective for those below the Earth celestial stage, if I don't have any special items now, the middle stage of the Earth celestial stage will be my limit when I return to the realm of heaven. It seems that I still have to think of a way to obtain the position of the blazing sun. Longchen muttered to himself. In fact, this was the reason why Longchen chose to return to the realm of heaven on the day of the competition for the position of the blazing sun. He had the body of the great emperor, so there were no barriers in his cultivation. But this didn't mean that he could break through without restraint. As his cultivation increased, his requirements for the quality of pills and spiritual power became higher and higher. Now, even the innate purple chi of the realm of heaven was gradually unable to increase his cultivation. Although saint-grade pills were still somewhat useful, if he wanted to obtain them in a short time, the price would be too expensive. Even Longchen's purple crystal card would be quickly squandered. Moreover, this purple crystal card would be of great use when establishing a divine kingdom. At any time, wealth was second only to combat power, and establishing a divine kingdom was the fusion of combat power and wealth. So he could only set his goal on the competition for the position of the 10 blazing Sunday. Longchen didn't want to do this unless he had no other choice. After all, it was too risky. The competition for the position of the 10 blazing sun was a grand event in the 10 directions realm. Every realm that obtained the title of Heavenly Palace's star would participate. This wasn't just an increase in fame and fortune, but also resources. Once one obtained the title of Blazing Sun, their name would be engraved on the domain tablet. The domain stele wasn't really just a stone stele. This monument is a magical artifact, a strange object that has stood in the first heaven since ancient times. According to the calculations of the people of the heaven region, 10,000 years ago was the ancient era. At that time, the various clans were at their peak, and the Tao of pills and formations had yet to wither. Going back another 90,000 years from the primordial era, which was 100,000 years ago, it was called the primordial era. During this period of time, the Tao and runes of the 10 directions celestial domain flourished, the alchemy fire flourished, and all races competed for glory. Countless geniuses with the purest bloodlines rose up. There were also countless divine beasts and demons wreaking havoc, and sovereigns were as numerous as carps crossing the river. However, millions of years ago, the ancient era was like chaos. Even Longchen had only heard some rumors. The domain stele had existed since ancient times, so it was obvious how mysterious it was. Although it was obtained by a transcendent ruler, Longchen knew that even a transcendent ruler was unable to control it. However, it was precisely this item that caused the 10 directions heaven domain to compete for the title of Blazing Sun every once in a while. This was because any expert who became a Blazing Sun was equivalent to the person with the most potential in the current generation of a domain. And his name would also appear on the domain stele. Once his name appeared on the domain stele, he would receive the Tao from the domain stele. The Tao from the domain stele. In the 10 great celestial domains, when the name of a blazing sun appeared on the domain stele, it was the time of the domain stele's baptism. There were once outstanding talents who reached the heavenly immortal realm from the origin immortal realm, and even reached the nirvana ruler realm. The sword pawns seemed to have fallen into silence. Jianshi-san hadn't come out, so Longchen wouldn't leave. Crackle crackle. While Longchen was stabilizing his cultivation, he saw strange flame patterns gradually appear on his right arm. There was also an inexplicable explosive intent within his body. He couldn't help but smile. It seemed that the seven-colored strange flame beast would return soon. The 3-year period he had agreed to with the ancient star beast in the Divine Tomb's secret realm was about to arrive. Perhaps on the day he went to war with the Heaven region, he would have an extra helping hand. Under the Sword Pond, people came to deliver food every day. Longchen could even hear the voices of worship outside the Sword Pond, which made him laugh involuntarily. At this moment, there were many origin immortals in the ancient desolate land, but he had truly become the faith of the ancient desolate land. Too many people had died in the Battle of Heaven Wasteland. The fear of the people of the Heaven region made these ordinary people completely deify Longchen. In the blink of an eye, another 4 months had passed. Now, Longchen's cultivation had stabilized at the 4th level of the Earth Immortal Realm. Even if he took sage-grade pills, the effect was minimal. You can leave first. He has already received recognition. He will obtain unprecedented opportunities here. There won't be any danger. The poignant sword spirit's brows were less worried. Longchen hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. After all, this woman was his sword spirit. He could still clearly distinguish whether her words were true or false. Moreover, based on his understanding of the Sword Pond, the male sword spirit was probably similar to this woman. What they needed was a chance to leave the Sword Pond. Longchen left the sacred sword here and said in a deep voice, "Help me take care of Jianshi-san. If anything happens to him, I'll turn this sacred sword in the Sword Pond into nothingness." As soon as he finished speaking, Longchen's figure disappeared into the Sword Pond. The poignant sword spirit did not seem to hear his words. She looked at the Sword Pond with a gentle expression and said in a desolate tone, "It's been 100,000 years. In the end, you and I can only be reborn as sword spirits. The people who brought us out of this place are actually humans from the human world." "That's good, that's good." On the other side, Longchen naturally did not hear the woman's words. He did not return to the southern Divine Mountain. Instead, he directly tore through space and went to the Alchemist Guild to find Yunmei. When Yunmei saw Longchen, she teased him. "Your Excellency, why didn't you inform me of your arrival? I would have bathed and changed my clothes to welcome you. I came here to ask you to send me to the 10th heaven. You can enter the 5th heaven and the ancient desolate land, so naturally, you can enter the 10th heaven at will." Longchen always had an unapproachable look on his face. Ever since Yi Hailan and Qing Xian, Longchen seemed to be afraid of having anything to do with Yunmei again. Whether Yunmei was teasing him or not, in this life, he didn't want to owe a debt of love. Yunmei rolled her eyes at Longchen, but she didn't get angry at all. "You don't even know how to enter the 10th heaven, and you still want to enter the main heaven? Of course, I can send you there, but the price is not low." Looking at Yunmei's businesslike appearance and her seductive eyes staring at him, Longchen couldn't help but laugh. He waved his right hand as if he was already prepared. "Here is the pill recipe for the Divine Yuan pill, and the detailed production process." Chapter 587. Driving a carriage. Although 2 of the 10 pill venerables were lucky enough to step into the saint stage, it was absolutely impossible for them to refine the Divine Yuan pill. The 10 of them spent 3 months in Longchen refining the Divine Yuan pill day and night, and the harvest was not small. However, they forgot that Longchen used the 4 great divine cauldrons to refine this pill. Without the 4 great divine cauldrons, there would be many changes to refining this pill. The most obvious change was the addition of 40 kinds of supplementary materials, not to mention the many changes in the array formation. When Yunmei heard that Longchen had the Divine Yuan pill recipe in his hand, she immediately reached out and snatched the jade slip from his hand. Seeing Yunmei acting like this, Longchen just smiled indifferently and said, "Don't worry, I won't go back on my word, but in exchange, let me return to the 10th heaven." Of course you can do it alone, but when the time comes and you really want to take action against the heaven, don't expect me to help you. Yunmei took Longchen to a secret room in the Alchemist Guild. Longchen nodded and agreed, indicating to Yunmei to rest assured. In fact, since the beginning of his seclusion, he had already begun to plan the array formation connecting the 10th heaven and the ancient desolate land. Now, only the last details of the array formation were left, and they were all handed over to the East Emperor clan. He followed Yunmei to the secret room. The secret room was surrounded by strange silver-gray carved stones. In the place where the carvings were engraved, a brilliance circulated. The brilliance converged in the center of the secret room. The secret room wasn't big, but it was more than 10 meters wide. This was a transmission array. To be precise, it was a transboundary array. It was similar to the time when the Bright Moon Ancient Clan used the transboundary stone to open the heaven passage. However, the complexity of this array was probably dozens of times higher. This was because there was no need for a transboundary array, only accurate spatial coordinates were needed. Sumeru transboundary array. To be able to set up this array in such a narrow place and connect it to the major heavens, it seems that your Yun family has many array masters. Longchen said casually. In fact, the array Longchen set up in the secret realm of the Northern Divine Mountain was also a Sumeru transboundary array, but the range was much wider. Hearing Longchen's words, Yunmei was slightly startled. Immediately, she understood Longchen's plan. Yunmei said while preparing to activate the array. It's good that you entered the 10th heaven again. The battle for the blazing sun is about to begin, and the full strength of the 10th heavenly palace will be displayed, perhaps, at that moment, Yunmei's tattoos to heavenly lands and heavenly palace. Yunmei's words did not contain any sarcasm, but more of a reminder. She was to realm to heavenly palace master to the 10th heaven heavens to be to dimension to be to the heavenly realm god. Yun to be. This time, Longchen still did not answer her, seeing the array flickering with a dazzling light, and the complicated lines began to move on the gray stone wall. Yunmei threw a light cyan jade pendant to Longchen. The jade pendant was only the size of a fingernail, but when it fell into his hand, it felt warm. You can use this item, deduct it from your remaining share. Yunmei smiled. Longchen held the jade pendant and cupped his fists slightly, and his figure disappeared into the teleportation array. The 10th heaven. Less than 3 days away from Sword Saint City, the Flaming Cloud City. This city was covered with a kind of peach blossom. This flower was red like fire, and there was one every 20 meters. In the center of the city, there was a huge peach tree that was 100 meters tall. Countless peach blossoms fell into the city like the setting sun. Such a huge peach tree was surrounded in a courtyard. The name of the courtyard was the Ocean of Clouds Chamber of Commerce. There was an endless stream of people coming and going from the Chamber of Commerce. It had to be said that the people who set up the Chamber of Commerce in this city were very smart. Anyone who wanted to head to Sword Saint City from the east had to pass through this place. Who wouldn't want to come in and take a look at such a unique city? A few dozen robust ox-horn beasts were dragging a long carriage out of the city. Every merchant knew what kind of goods these ox-horn beasts were transporting. It was a type of heavy meteorite ore, and every centimeter weighed 5,000 kilograms. This ore couldn't be carried in storage spaces because of its special texture, and only demon beasts like the ox-horn beasts could carry it. Numerous guards followed behind them, and the ones walking at the front were 2 young men who looked no more than 25 or 26 years old and an old man in his twilight years. As soon as they walked out of the city, a young man in a green robe shouted, "Speed up. We must reach Heavenly Origin City in 10 days. Everyone has to pay 10 high-grade spirit stones." The coachmen on the ox-horn beasts were all excited when they heard this. Everyone couldn't help but speed up. Only the last carriage seemed to be slightly stiff, and even the ox-horn beast seemed to be slightly dispirited. The young man on the carriage was holding a whip, but he didn't know what to do. The young man's black hair was scattered behind him, and it was tied into 3 knots. It represented that he'd been driving for 3 years. His body was extremely thin and weak, and there was an ordinary iron sword hanging from his waist. The hilt of the sword was made from the black horn of the oxhorn beast. His appearance was extremely ordinary as well, and there was nothing special about his dark and tan face. This was the standard attire of a oxhorn beast carriage driver. However, he didn't know how to drive a carriage. At this moment, the last docile oxhorn beast was being forcefully controlled by him with his divine sense. He was Long Chen. However, even if Jian Shan saw his current appearance, he would probably be unable to recognize him. Long Chen instinctively touched his forehead. The jade pendant that Yun Mei'er had given him was between his brows. It was exactly this jade pendant that had changed his appearance. This jade pendant wasn't an ordinary item. Even though it was a one-time use item, it could be used indefinitely so long as it wasn't removed. Furthermore, as long as no one probed the inside of his body, no one would be able to see through his appearance. Long Chen could not help but reveal a smile at the corner of his mouth. The revolving jade that Yun Mei'er had given him was quite good for him. Long Chen didn't have any intention of leaving the caravan. The two young men at the front looked young, but they were actually more than 130 years old and had just reached the Earth Immortal stage. They weren't going to Tianyuan City just to sell these carriages of heavy meteorite ore again. They were also going to participate in the Battle of the Blazing Suns. Heavy meteorite ore allowed many traveling merchants to make a fortune during the Battle of the Blazing Suns. Heavy meteorite ore was a necessity for the construction of the Blazing Suns battle platform. The caravan advanced towards Tianyuan City. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. After an earth-shattering sound, the entire caravan came to a halt. Everyone's gazes shifted to the back of the group. The two Heavenly Palace's star children and the old man at the front walked up to Long Chen with ashen faces. The oxhorn beast that Long Chen had driven had collapsed to the ground and was foaming at the mouth. Chapter 588. Woman in disguise. Long Chen had a helpless expression on his face when he saw that everyone was staring at the near-unconscious oxhorn beast. This beast had a gentle nature, but there was a unique method to drive it away. The young man stared at Long Chen and snorted, "What are you still sitting there for? Hurry up and distribute the ores to the other carts. We must cross this mountain by nightfall." The two Heavenly Palace star children and the old man also began to move, but their expressions were somewhat unfriendly. This was something they were very unwilling to see. The heavenly meteorite mine would allow them to exchange for a considerable amount of profit from the Heavenly Palace. However, it was precisely because of this that many people had died on the road before the Blazing Sun battle began. Many of them were even stars of the Heavenly Palace. Although the Heavenly Palace's star child had been personally nominated by the Heavenly Palace, in reality, they had nothing to do with the Heavenly Palace. There was no connection between them at all. If they could get rid of their opponents before the Battle of the Blazing Suns, they would be able to reap many benefits. Naturally, most people were willing to do so. Most of the drivers were only in the Runhuang realm, but the quality of the heavenly meteorite ores in the cart had reached an appalling level. Even though there were 3 powerhouses at the Earth's celestial stage participating, it still took several hours. Long Chen was traveling with the identity of a young man in the team. So, he was naturally scolded by the leader of the team. However, everyone still hurried on with their journey. They wanted to cross the mountain before sunset. Long Chen was also called up by the leading old man to ride his own horned beast. When the old man saw that the 3 people in front of him were a little further away, he turned around and said to Long Chen, "We are all coachmen, and we are all gathered together for this trip. It can be considered fate. Don't take my words to heart. We'll share some of the fare with you when the time comes." Long Chen nodded with an honest look on his face. He said gratefully, "You're afraid that I'll be punished, so I don't dare to hold a grudge against you." After Long Chen finished speaking, the old man nodded and continued driving the carriage. Long Chen realized that the cowhorn beast had to place a hand 3 inches away from its back and 1 foot deep into its ear hole. While Long Chen was bored to death, his face revealed a hint of surprise. Before he had left the city, he had heard that the journey to Tianyuan City was generally not peaceful, so he had constantly spread out his spiritual sense. But now, he discovered an extremely interesting thing: the old man beside the two earthly celestial stage stars was actually a woman. Moreover, she was a woman who was just over 20 years old. If not for the woman walking right in front and Fangjin whispering to the two men, which was caught by Longchen probably wouldn't have noticed. It seemed that this woman had something similar to the rotation jade on her. The group gradually entered the mountain. Not only did their speed not slow down, but it also increased. The cowhorn beast had a huge body and seemed to be very familiar with the mountainous terrain. It walked as if it was flat ground. Wherever it passed, the huge trees would be instantly smashed to pieces by its huge black horns. However, Longchen's brows gradually furrowed. Longchen's right hand formed a finger and heavily tapped the back of the cowhorn beast he was sitting on. Roar! The cowhorn beast's 4 strong limbs suddenly knelt on the ground, leaving a 1-meter deep mark on the ground. Then, it opened its mouth and roared explosively. Longchen was sitting on the leader's cowhorn beast. When the beast stopped, the people behind had no choice but to stop as well. The old man beside Longchen's face suddenly changed and he immediately shouted at Longchen, "What are you doing?" When the caravan stopped, the cowhorn beasts roared, causing the 3 people in front to fly back. The 2 men in green robes had terrifyingly gloomy expressions. This mountain was extremely easy to be ambushed. The terrain was neither high nor low. If they did not cross the mountain before sunset, it would be far more dangerous on the mountain than at the foot of the mountain. "Who told you to stop?" One of the men in green robes suddenly shouted, holding a long saber in his hand. The people around them immediately fell silent and no one dared to say a word. The old man could not help but shiver and could not help but glance at Longchen. He was not related to Longchen. Now that Longchen had done this, he was naturally unwilling to risk his life for him. "You again? If it weren't for you, we might have crossed the mountain long ago." As soon as the long-faced man in green robes finished speaking, the long saber in his hand was already filled with celestial power. He actually wanted to directly kill Longchen. "Wait!" At this moment, the old man disguised as a woman spoke. His voice was extremely hoarse. If Longchen had not used his divine thought to spy on her conversation with the 2 women, perhaps he would not have noticed at all. As soon as the woman's voice fell, the man's saber, which was originally aimed at Longchen, was forcibly pushed back by the sword of the black-faced young man beside him. The green-robed man's face was extremely unsightly. He said coldly, "This place is surrounded by lush forests. Now that the sky is dark, once someone avoids a sneak attack by divine thought, we will be in a dangerous situation." First, the demonic beast he was riding was inexplicably exhausted. Now, he actually took the initiative to force the oxhorn beast to stop. He must have ulterior motives. As soon as the man finished speaking, the surrounding people subconsciously moved away from Longchen. The old man disguised as a woman also stared at Longchen and asked in a deep voice, "Why did you force the caravan to stop?" "If you don't have a good reason, I'm afraid I can't stop him from killing you." Longchen jumped down from the oxhorn beast's broad body. He glanced at the few people and said indifferently, "If we cross the mountain, except for the 3 of you, the rest of the caravan will undoubtedly die." As soon as Longchen's voice fell, everyone was startled. Immediately, the green-robed man with a long face stared at Longchen with a face full of ridicule and shouted, "Who do you think you are? You're just a carriage driver. The 3 of us have already seen from above. There is no ambush ahead. However, if we continue to stay here, who knows what kind of trouble we will cause." The old man frowned when he heard Longchen's words. He said in a deep voice, "We won't kill you today. If you are still willing to follow the caravan, we will let you off at the next city. If you are not willing, you can leave now." Looking at the old man, Longchen shook his head and did not say anything. His right hand twitched for a moment, and the fine steel sword at his waist heavily pierced into the leather armor of the oxhorn beast. the ox-horned beast immediately felt pain and roared crazily. It then rushed to the other side of the mountain with the first carriage of heavy meteorite Oregon. "How dare you? What are you doing?" The green-robed man with a long face suddenly became angry. However, once the ox-horned beast's huge body and strength charged, it was impossible to stop it unless they killed it. This place was only a few dozen meters away from the top of the mountain. In the blink of an eye, the beast had already rushed to the top of the mountain. The beast was a little crazy and actually rolled down directly. The roars were like rolling thunder. The old man and the other black-robed man rose into the air and wanted to take a look. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.